Hey guys, welcome to Compose Multiplatform course. In this course, we're gonna create Gamopedia application, which is not only executable in your Android devices, but it is also executable in iOS platform and desktops too. We will use Compose Multiplatform. The Compose Multiplatform is a platform that provides us an ability to create an application that is not only executable in Android devices, but it is also executable on iOS devices and desktops too. So with Compose multi-platform, you can use Kotlin. You can share your user interface across the platform. So in order to design our UI, we will use Jetpack Compose, and this Jetpack Compose is executable in all platforms. Apart from this, we will use Kotlin. So as a native Android developer, for us, it's very easy to use Compose multi-platform because we are very much aware about the technologies that it uses to build this application. Talking about my application, so in our application, we have dashboard screen where you can see the list of games. You are having search bar icon and you are having the favorite icon. So if you want to see any information regarding a particular game, you can click on it. You will see the complete details, and at the top bar you will see two icons. One is actually used to add this game into your favorite. Next icon is used to delete that information from your local database. So if you save anything favorite, that means it is stored in your local database. Now come back to our dashboard screen. When you click the search icon, you will navigate to a different screen where you can write your query, and based on your query it will show you a list of games. And when you click on it, you will again to navigate to the detail screen where you can see the information of that particular game. You can also save that information into your local database, and also if it is already been saved, you can delete it. Lastly, all of this saved information, all of your favorite games, you can see very easily by clicking on the dashboard favorite icon. You will see the complete details, complete list of your games that you have been saved as your favorite. Now we will talk about tools and technologies that we will use in order to build this beautiful project. We will use multi-module approach. Yes, it's a multi-module project. We have various kind of feature modules. We are also having few core modules and also one common module. So feature module, of course, it contains feature information, and in this feature we have three modules which take cares about the clean architecture. So every feature has three layers: data, domain, and UI. Talking about my core module, so core module contains the core logic, like if you want to communicate with our network, that information is specific to a core network module. Similarly, we will use in this project SQLDelight database. So all of this database information will be encapsulated in a core database module. So yes, it's a multi-module project. You will learn a lot. And also during this project creation, we will discuss types of modelization approaches we have and why we particularly chose this feature plus layer wise modelization. Apart from this, we will use Koin dependency injection framework. We'll use KTOR Client to communicate with our backend APIs, and also we will use SQLDelight database to store information in our local database, or you can see your favorite games. We are using multi-module approach, so of course we'll use these things too. Clean architecture with MVVM, and also we will see the best practices to perform navigation in our multi-module project, so that in future you will never end up with circular dependency problem. Alright, so these are the things that we'll try to cover, and also we will start from scratch. So if you don't know anything about Compose multi-platform, you can watch this video till the end, and after watching this video you have a complete idea about Compose multi-platform. After that, you can create your own projects that is not only executable in Android devices, but it is also executable on iOS and desktop devices. Okay, so enough talking, let's get started with our video and start building this project. So first thing first, we need a project. So for the time being, Android Studio does not provide you any template that you can use to create Compose multi-platform project. For the time being, we'll have to use Kotlin wizard website, and in this website you can create a Compose multi-platform project. So let's see how you can do this. For that, open up your browser and just type here Kotlin wizard. Just open the first link. So this is a place where you can mention all of your project details. As you can see in here, my project name is Kotlin project, which is now become Gamopedia. Project ID is fine, Gaur Himanshu Gamopedia. And after that, we'll choose the platform. So I want to build an application that is executable on Android, iOS, and desktop. So just click on this desktop and make sure in iOS do not use this option which is do not share UI, because we want to use the Jetpack Compose that we will write in this project. that Jetpack Compose is shared across all of the platform. We do not want to write any native Swift UI for iOS or any native UI for Android. We want to share everything from that Jetpack Compose. Due to that reason, I'm using a share UI, and as you can see it in the bracket, it says with Compose Multiplatform UI framework. Yes, and it is in beta. And recently they have been making an announcement that Compose Multiplatform 1.8.0 is stable for iOS development. So now you can create an application with Compose Multiplatform and deliver it to your Apple stores. Okay, so this is all we need from this project setup. Download it. It will provide you a zip. Extract this zip, and after that you need to open this folder into your Android Studio. So open your Android Studio, click on this open, downloads, select this Gamopedia. Okay, I think I need to just refresh it. Okay, so now it is available. Again, open, downloads, open this Gamopedia. It takes a while. Till that, I'm going to show you the API that I will consume. So open up your browser, simply open this link rawg.io. I will put this link in the description. You can simply click on that and you will directly navigate to this screen. This is the biggest gaming database that I've been ever seen. First thing first, you should log in yourself. After that, you need an API key. So after you log in, you can simply click on this API. It will open a user interface like this, where you can get your API keys or you can read documentation. So first you need to get your API key, and after that click on this read documentation, which will show you some kind of UI like this. So I'm interested in the game, so click on this game. We have here various kind of APIs, and we are interested in the get a list of games API. This is the endpoint, https api.rawg.io/api/games. So this API will give you this kind of response. And here you can see we have a lot of query parameters. So if you want to search any particular game, you can use search query. We will use this search query, and also we will use the normal API call like this. But for that, you'll have to use your API key. So first thing first, just create your API key by yourself. And now it's time to use this particular API. But before that, let me just show you the project structure that we have in Compose Multiplatform project. So open up Android Studio and just change the view from Android to project. Let me just stretch it out a little bit. Okay, so this is our project. Open your project Gamopedia. We have a bunch of directories in this, and the most important directory is Compose application. So this Compose app is responsible to build your application for Android, for iOS, and for the desktop. So this is a kind of application module that we have in Android projects. It is an entry point of our application. This will assemble your application for all the platforms that we will target. Open up buildgradle.kts. So we have few plugins. We have KOTLIN DSL, and in this, as you can see, it mentions the Android target. It mentions all of the target for iOS, in which it includes iOS 64, iOS ARM64, iOS simulator ARM64. Scroll down, we have target for our desktop, and in this source set you can mention the dependencies, like we'll use buildgradle to add dependencies in our Android projects. Similarly, we have in here, let's say you want to add a dependency specifically for Android, you can use this block, Android main dependency. If you want to use any dependency that is common, that is shareable to both platforms, then you can use common main dependency, and this dependency is only accessible in your common main, right? And this Android main dependency is only accessible in your Android main. Similarly, for desktop, you can add dependency over here, and this dependency is only accessible in your desktop main. And similarly, lastly, we have iOS main. So iOS main dependencies, and in this you can mention all of the dependencies that is specific for iOS, and this is accessible only in your iOS main. So this is the project structure, and in this common main, if you open, we have an app. So this composable is not only work for Android, but it is also used to create your iOS application and a desktop application at the same time. So this is the project structure that we will receive when we create an application using Compose Multiplatform. Now it is a very good time to create few modules. As we have already discussed, this project is a multi-modular project. So we have few core modules, we have few feature modules that we will create right now. So for the time being, Android Studio does not provide you any template that you can use to create Compose Multiplatform module. We can do that thing manually. So let's see how we can create a module that is used in our Compose Multiplatform project. So for that, just right click here, new, create a directory, because module are nothing but a directory that we can use in our project. So as I told you, we have few core modules. So in core, we have core database that contains information about the database, local database that we have. Next, we have core network that contains all of the logic that is used to perform network communication. So let's use here core network. And similarly, we have to create one more module for database. So core network, core database. Now it is time to create a few feature module. So in feature, we have search feature, and search feature contains 3 layer: data, domain, and presentation, or UI. Because in this particular project, we will use the combination of feature wise modelization and layer wise modelization. So every feature contains 3 layer: data, domain, and UI. So search contain UI layer and also data and domain. So data, and lastly we have domain. And I believe you already know how these modules, how these layers depend each other. So UI depends on domain layer and data depends on domain layer. Domain layer is an independent layer that contains all of the blueprint, and also it contains the use cases that will consume in our ViewModel, or you can say UI layer. Just close this thing up. Now we will create one more module, and this time we have favorite module. So favorite contain data, domain, and UI. Next we have domain, and lastly we have UI layer. So we are done with favorite, and lastly it's time to create directory for our game module. So game contain data, domain, and UI. So we are done with data, then we have domain, and lastly we have our UI layer. So this is all we have. So we have favorite feature, game feature, search feature, and we have 2 core modules: core database and core network. So this feature module depend on the core modules, and core module is available to all of our feature, as you can say. Now in this, as you can see right now, it looks like a normal plain directory, but we want to use this thing in a form of module. So to do that, first thing first, we need to add here build.gradle.kts. So in the core database, I'm going to create a file. Make sure to choose this file. Use here build gradle kts, and in this I'm going to just paste the content that we have in the composeApp gradle file. So copy this and paste in here. Make sure to change the package name and also remove this main class, because building of our application is the responsibility that is delegated to our composeApp module. It is not on any other module. Due to that reason, we have to remove all of the things that is used to tell our build gradle automation tool that this is a module from where you can build the application. Due to that reason, we have to just remove this main class, because this main class is actually used to get the information about the entry point for desktop application. So remove it and make sure to change the package name, which is core database. Scroll up. This Android DSL is actually used to build our Android application, and as I told you, we will use this core database as a module. So we have to remove this application ID and just change the namespace from Gamopedia to core database, and rest of the things looking fine to me. Scroll up, and yeah, rest of the thing is fine. Make sure to remove this Android application plugin, because this is not something which we can use to create our Android application. It is something which is delegated to our Compose application build.gradle.automation tool. So use here Android library, because this acts as a library, of course. And when you open this libs.version.toml file, scroll down, you will have Android library. Okay, now it is time to include this core database in our project. So for that, open up your settings, Gradle KTS, scroll down, duplicate it and mention the database module and sync it. So we have a little problem in here, and the problem is we cannot define version code in our code database module. As I told you, building of our application is something which is delegated to compose application, and this information is used when it try to build your application. So remove this version code, and I believe remove this version name too. Now just try one more time. Okay, as you can see, our Gradle sync is completed, and now when you see the code database, it looks like a module. And in this module, I'm going to create a directory, and the directory is common main directory. You can also create here Android main directory, iOS main directory, and desktop main directory if you want to. But for my use case, I don't want that thing. And in this KOTLIN, I can also create few packages like we have core himanshu.core database, or remove this dash with capital D database. And in this we will write all of the logic that is used to create our local database later. So this is the way how you can create your modules. Now I'm just copy this stuff. It's time to do the same thing for core network. Right click on it, new, create a file naming build.gradle.kts and paste in here. Just change the name from core database to core network. And here too, scroll up, change the name, and also in your settings.gradle.kts mention the core network module, sync it. Okay, so now we have our core network module. Similarly, I'm gonna do the same thing for our favorite, game, and search. So this time I'm just copy this build.gradle.kts, paste in my favorite data, in favorite domain, and in favorite UI. Just scroll down. In the UI, you can use here favorite UI as the name. Copy this, scroll up, use this favorite UI over here too. Similarly, in the favorite domain build.gradle.kts, I'm gonna use favorite domain instead of favorite UI. Copy this, scroll up, do the same thing over here. Now similarly, you can do the same thing for data build.gradle.kts. Scroll down, just paste it instead of domain, you can use data. Copy this stuff, scroll up, and in Android you can use favorite.data. Again, I'm gonna copy this, and in game data I'm paste it, in game domain I'm gonna paste it, and in game UI I'm gonna paste it. Just change the package name. So now it become game domain, and this is also changed from favorite to game. This is a UI layer, so make sure to use here UI instead of domain over here too. This is a very typical thing to do because I know it's a very iterating part, but if you are using multi-module approach, you have to do it. Now this is a game domain, and this is also game domain. Open the data Gradle file, scroll down, use here game instead of domain, you can use data. Just copy this, scroll up, and paste in here. So we are done with the game. Now I'm gonna copy one more time and paste this thing on search, data, domain, and UI, and change the package name from game to search UI. Copy this, scroll up, and just paste in here. Open up domain Gradle file, scroll down, just change this thing from game data to search. I think it's domain. Scroll down, use the same package name, search domain, and now open up your data module, scroll down, replace this thing with search data. Copy it, scroll up, remove this thing with search data. Okay, so now we are pretty much done with the build.gradle.kts with all of our module. It's time to include these modules in our project. So for that, I'm going to duplicate this. So we have here the search UI, Now instead of using this duplication, I'm using search UI duplication. We have data, we have domain. So first let's sync it up in order to include this search module in our project. Alright, so you can see search is now become our part. Same thing I'm going to do with the game module. So just duplicate it, and instead of using here search, we'll use here game. Copy this game, paste in here, and also I'm going to do the same thing for my favorite. Copy this, paste here. Okay, sync it up. Alright, so as you can see, now we have modules: core database, core network, favorite, game, and search. Now I'm gonna add few dependencies in my libs.version.toml file. We will use here KTOR Client, which is used to communicate with our backend API. Apart from this, we will also use here Koin dependency injection framework in order to use dependency injection in our project. Apart from this, we will use SQLDelight to store all of our information as a favorite to our local database. Last but not least, we will use here coil image loading library. So these are the things that I want to include in my project. So we can do that thing very easily by using their dependencies. So let me just paste that dependency for you. Okay, so I have added all the dependency. As you can see, Koin, KTOR, SQLDelight. Scroll down. We have Koin core, Koin for compose, Koin compose ViewModel, coil image loading library. This is for the KTOR client. Then we have serialization, and also for in order to perform navigation, we have this navigation dependency. And at the bottom we have SQLDelight. So this is for the common, that is used in our common main dependency. This is used in our common main for coroutines. This is for Android, iOS, and desktop. And at the bottom we have few plugins: KOTLIN serialization, KOTLIN Android, SQLDelight. By the way, we do not use this one, but still let it be. Sync your project. Okay, so syncing is done. Now it is a good time to begin with our project. So we will continue with our core network module, and in this, first let me create a directory. So in this directory we'll only use here common main KOTLIN. So source common main KOTLIN, you should use this one. And in this I'm gonna create few package like core Himanshu core network. And in this core network we have few more packages, like we have model, we have DI for dependency injection, and lastly we have our API service. So now we are going to create the data transfer object that we will use to transfer information from backend to frontend. So for that, let me show you the API that we will consume in this project. Open up your Chrome browser, and this is the website rawj.io. This is the biggest gaming database that I have ever been seen. So I'm gonna use its database in order to build our project. So first thing first, log in yourself, and after that just click on this API. So it will open this website. And in this website, as you can see, you can generate your API key, and also you can read the documentation. So first thing first, you should create your API key, and after that just click on this read documentation. It will open this website. And in this, as you can see, because we are mostly dealing with games API, I'm gonna choose the game one. And in this game tab we have a lot of APIs. So first thing first, we will have get a list of games API endpoint. So I'm going to use this endpoint. As you can see, this is my API endpoint, and this is the response structure. And if you see here query parameters, we have a lot of query parameters, and in this we are interested in the search query parameter, because in our search module, or you can say in our search feature, we'll have a screen that is used to search the game according to the query that the user will pass in our query block, or you can say in our query text field. Okay, so now I'm gonna just use this endpoint, and as I told you, you should use your API key, otherwise you will never receive any success response from their end. So I'm using my API key and just click enter. As you can see, this is their response structure. I'm gonna just copy all, come back to our Android Studio project, and in this model I'm gonna create one more package, and I'm gonna say this game, and in this game I'm gonna create all of the model classes corresponding to this JSON. For that I'm using a plugin KOTLIN data class file from JSON. You can download this plugin from the marketplace. It's very easy. Just paste your response, and in place of class name you can just give your response names as I give in here, which is game response. And when I click generate, it will create data classes as you can see in here. So we have game response in here, and in this game response, as you can see, we are receiving count, description, filter next, no follow collection, no index, previous results. So we are mostly interested in the result. Just control click on this result, and in this result we have a lot of information, and mostly I am interested in three parameters: the ID, name of the game, and the image URL. Rest of the things I'm gonna just remove it. So background image is fine, I want this. Remove this clip, I don't want. Dominant color, all of these things I don't want, so remove it. We have ID, so yes, ID I want. I also want the name. Rest of the things I don't want, so simply just remove it. And in this result we have only three parameters, and this result come in a form of list in our game response. And also we are not interested in these parameters too, so just remove it. Okay, so we have game response that will return me a list of results. Rest of the data classes I'm gonna just remove it. Okay, so now we have game response, and game response will have list of result in it, and this is the result that contain information about the image, ID, and name. So if you want to use this game response in your KTOR client, we should make this class as serializable. Otherwise it is not possible by the KTOR client to just map the JSON object that it is receiving from backend to our model classes that we are just creating over here. So we should use here serializable annotation. By the way, this is not available. You should include this thing in your build.gradle.ktks. So just open this thing, scroll up, and we have plugin libs plugin KOTLIN X serialization, and also we need to add dependencies because we are dealing in common main directory. We should add that dependency in our common main. So implementation libs KOTLIN X serialization, and we are good to go. Just sync it. It takes a while, and yes, it's done. Now go back to your game response, and now it is available. Just type here ser, and we have a suggestion serializable, so just use it. Okay, so now we are done with the response structure. Now it is time to build our KTOR client. So for that, first we have to add dependencies, and when you open libs.version.toml, you can see we have already added all these dependency. So KTOR client core, KTOR client Android, for iOS, for desktop, for logging, for content negotiation. We have a lot of dependencies, and I'm gonna add all of these. So for that, go to your build Gradle KTS, and first thing first, I'm gonna just use libs KTOR Android, KTOR client for Android, sorry. Yeah, we have for Android. Now similarly I'm gonna add for common main. So implementation libs KTOR client core. So first we have to mention the core. Next we have to include its content negotiation, because content negotiation is actually used to negotiate with content. And also we have to use the serialization dependency, which is coming from KTOR. So libs KTOR, we have serialization, KOTLIN X, and lastly JSON. So these three dependency we need to use in our common main. In our desktop main, we have to include the desktop dependency for KTOR. So libs KTOR client for desktop. Scroll down, in iOS main we have to add the KTOR client dependency for iOS. So libs KTOR client for iOS, as you can see. Now just control click on this desktop, you can see we have used all these dependencies. Now simply sync your project. Alright, so syncing is done. Now in this core network, I'm gonna create one more package, and the package name is client, and in this client I'm gonna create an object, and the object name is KTOR Client. In this we have a function get instance, and this will provide me HTTP client. Now it's time to build the HTTP client. So use your HTTP client pair of parentheses, and in this we shall install a lot of things. We shall install the content negotiation, and we want to negotiate our content in a form of JSON. So just mention JSON. You can also add few more properties to your JSON by using its JSON parameter. So what I want to include in here, just ignore the unknown keys to true. This is my first installation in this HTTP client. Next, we should install the default request. So in our default request, let me just copy paste this endpoint so that it's very easy for us to take reference. As you can see, this is our host, and we are using protocol HTTPS. So use here URL block or DSL, and in this URL DSL just mention the host. So host is API rawg.io, and if you see the protocol, so protocol is something which is HTTPS. And also we are negotiating our content in a form of JSON, so we should mention that thing in here. So we have content type dot application JSON, and accepted type is also JSON. So content type application JSON. So this is my default request. And lastly, we will install the timeouts. So install HTTP timeouts. We have three different types of timeouts. We have socket timeout in millis, which is 3 seconds. If you type here time, you can see we have connection timeout and request timeout too. So connection timeout is also 3 seconds, and lastly we have request timeout in millis, which is also 3 seconds. So this get instance will give you an instance of your HTTP client that you can use to perform API communication with your backend. Okay, so we are done with KTOR client. Now it is a good time to create an API service that is used to hit this backend API to get the information. Again, go back to your project, and in this API service, I'm gonna just create a class API service, and in this API service, I'm gonna pass my HTTP client. So we have a function, suspend function, get games. The return type of this thing is a result, and result is game response. We'll use here try catch because we are dealing with backend communication, and sometimes it may throw an exception. So if we caught any exception, we'll use here a result failure and pass the exception. Otherwise, we'll just use our HTTP client to get the response. So first we have HTTP client that will provide me HTTP client, and using the get request because the API uses get method. That is why I want to use here HTTP client dot get method, and in this get method you can pass the endpoint. Let me just copy paste the URL for you. So this is the URL. Copy this, come back in your API service and just paste in here. So as you can see, up to this point everything is present in our HTTP client in a form of host and the protocol. Next we have endpoint. So this is my endpoint, and lastly we have this query. So just mention the API slash games, and in the URL DSL you can also append the parameter. So parameter, we have a parameter, and in this parameter you can pass the parameter name, which is key, and its value. So value is this one. So just copy this key and paste in here. Instead of using parameters, because we want to include only one parameter, I'm gonna use here parameter. Just import it, and this is done. So after getting the information we'll use here body, and the type of body is nothing but game response. So we have our game response from the backend, and at the end I'm using result.success and pass my response in it, and in front of try I'm using return. So this is our first API call using HTTP client. So now it's time to set up our Koin dependency injection framework for this particular module. So for that, open up your build.gtl KTS, because we are in the common main directory and we are doing all the things in our common main. In this common main, I'm gonna add dependency. So implementation libs Koin core, sync your project. Okay, so now in our core network, I'm gonna create a package for dependency injection. I think it is already exist. So in this, I'm gonna create a file, and the file name is core network module. And in this, we have a function get core network module, and it will return a Koin module. And in this, I'm gonna register my API service. So instead of using factory, I'm using here single. So single means it only create a single instance of our API service, and in this API service we need to inject HTTP client. So just mention the property name, and after that you can use the KTOR client dot get instance function. So this will provide you an HTTP client instance which is injected in our API service. And lastly, we have to register this get core network module in our application module, which we will do later. So that's it. We are done with our first API call. We have added API service, and in this API service, we are using HTTP client dot get method to get information from the backend, and this will return us a list of games. So now let's begin with our game module, and in this game module we have our main screen, which is the dashboard screen, and in that dashboard screen we have the top bar, we have the search bar, and just below to it we will see the list of games that this API will provide us. So for that, open up your game module, open up your data, and in this data, first thing first, we should establish a connection between this game data module with our core network. So for that, scroll up in the common main, use here implementation projects dot core network, just sync it. Alright, so the connection is established between these two modules. Similarly, in the domain, I'm gonna first create my directory, which is common main. And in this common main, as I told you, domain layer contains the blueprint of repository that is used by our data layer to give the implementation. So for that, let me just create few packages first. So we have core Himanshu game domain, and in this domain I'm going to create one more package for dependency injection. Then we have one more package for repository, and last but not least we have few domain models and use cases package. So first thing first, let's create model classes. So this is a data class, and I'm gonna name it game, and in this game we have ID, type is integer. Then we have our game name, and lastly we have image URL. In the repository package, I'm gonna create an interface, and the interface name is game repository, and in this game repository we have suspend function get games, and it will result type of result that contains a list of game. Now we have to establish a connection between this data layer and domain layer. So go to this data layer build.gtl.kts package, just duplicate it and use here game.domain. Just sync your project, and in this data create a directory for common main, and in this KOTLIN I'm gonna create a package which is core Himanshu game data, and in this data we have our repository package, and in this repository I'm going to create a class, and the class name is game repository implementation. So simply use your game repository, override its method which is getGames. So if you want to get information from the backend, we have already been created a API service. So use this API service in here. And also, as you can see, this API service will return a game response that contain a list of result in it. And our return type is list of games in our case. So we have to write a mapper that is actually used to map this game response list of result into a list of game. So for that, in this data package, I'm going to create one more package naming mappers, and in this mapper we have a file, and the file name is mappers. So it is an extension over a list of result. Make sure this result is coming from our core network module dot to domain list of games. Return type is list of game, of course. We'll use here map, and in this map we'll use game. Just specify all the argument by name, it dot id, it dot name, it dot background image. So this will do the mapping for us. Now come back to our game repository implementation, and over here we'll start using it. So first thing first, we want the result from our API service. So API service get games, it will provide you a game response. So if our result is success, then only we'll use result get or throw and the extension function that we had created in mappers. But for that we'll use a result dot to domain list of games. So now we have a list of game over here. As you can see, return type is result of type list of games. So just wrap this thing in result dot success. Else we'll use a result failure and pass the exception. So exception is again coming from a result exception or null, and I'm pretty much sure this will never null. That's why I'm using a double exclamatory mark. Return it. So this is our repository implementation. Now it is time to provide this repository implementation by using Koin dependency injection framework. So create a package, and the package name is dependency injection, and in this we have a file, and the file name is game data module. Create a function get game data module. Use here module DSL. Yes, it is available. This time I'm using a factory. So I want every time when we want to inject its repository implementation, we want a new instance of our repository implementation. That is why I'm using a factory. Mention the type. So the type is game repository, and in this we have game repository implementation, and its requirement is API service, which our Koin dependency injection framework already knows how to create and inject it in our core network module. Okay, so we are done with the dependency injection part, and we are also done with this implementation. Now in our domain, it's time to create use cases. So just create a class, and the class name is get games use case. This is a class, and in this class I want to inject my repository. So game repository. In this we have an operator function naming invoke. Return type is flow. This flow is a type of result list of game. Now I'm simply using here emit game repository dot get games, and if we found any kind of exception, we just use here catch operator to catch those exception, and after that we'll simply emit it. So result failure and pass the error over here, and I want to execute this thing on dispatcher.io. Okay, so now it's time. Let me import this IO first, and after that we'll create Koin dependency injection module for our domain layer. So in this DI, I'm going to create a file, and the file name is game domain module. So we have a function get game domain module. We'll use here module DSL, which is not available because I haven't added the dependency in my common main dependencies. Just scroll up over here, you can add its core dependency. So implementation libs Koin core. Sync your project, come back to your game domain module, and as you can see now it is available. So simply import it, and after that create a factory that will return the instance of our get games use case, and in its we have to pass game repository. So just mention the name of that parameter and after that use get. Okay, so for the time being we are pretty much done with our domain layer. Just close this domain layer and close this data layer. Now it's time to open this UI layer, and in this UI I'm gonna create a directory for common main, and in this common main Kotlin I want to create a package which is called Himanshu. This time we are dealing with UI, so game.ui, and in this UI I'm gonna create a package and the package name is game, and in this game we have our screen and the view model. So for this screen I'm gonna call this game screen. This is a file, and just below to this I'm gonna create its view model. So game view model, it's a class which extend view model to inherit all of its property, and in this game view model I'm gonna inject my use case. So private well, we have get game use case, which is not available because there is no connection in between UI and domain layer. So open up your build.gtl.kts, scroll a little bit up, and in your common main dependency you should establish a connection between them. So we have projects dot game dot domain. Sync your project. Alright, so syncing is done. Now go back to your game view model and use the use case get game use case. Now at the bottom, first thing first, I'm gonna create a data class which is actually used to hold our state. So for that I'm gonna create an object, and the object name is game screen, and in this I'm gonna create a data class naming UI state. So we have here is loading naming boolean variable, initial value is false. We have error parameter which is actually used to hold the error message, and lastly the data. As you know, data is a list of game which may null initially. And in our view model I'm gonna create a private variable naming UI state variable, which is nothing but a mutable state flow, and in this mutable state flow I'm gonna use my game screen dot UI state and initialize it. Just below to it we have an immutable UI state. So use the mutable state flow and convert it into as state flow, basically in a form of state flow, so that it is not mutable. And we'll use this UI state in our screens. Now just below to it we have a function which actually triggers the API call. So I'm gonna call this get games and use my get game use case, invoke it, and on start I just want to update my UI state. So we have game screen, create a new instance of our UI state, and is loading is true. So this is happened when our flow just started, and on each emission, so on each will receive the result, and if our result is successful we'll receive the data, otherwise we'll receive the error message. So if it is a success case, I'm using my UI state and update our UI state. So game screen UI state, in place of data we can simply pass data that we were receiving from our use case. And if it is not the case, if we encounter any kind of exception or error on that scenario, I'm using my UI state, update it, game screen UI state, and in error parameter I'm gonna pass the error message and stringify it. Alright, so at the end I want to launch this flow on ViewModel scope. So this is the get games, and I think I need to just trigger this API call once we just created our view model. Alright, so we are pretty much done with our game view model. Now it's time to begin with our UI design for game screen. So now we are going to design the game screen. So for that, I'm gonna use here a composable function naming game screen, and in this I'm gonna pass my modifier. Initial value is modifier. So first thing first, we will create an instance of our game view model. So view model, I'm using here Koin view model, which is not available because I haven't added dependency for this Koin view model in our build.gradle.kts. So in this common main at the bottom, I'm gonna use here implementation libs, and we have Koin compose view model. So simply add it and sync your project. After that, go back to your game screen, and after this syncing, you will see Koin view model is available. As you can see, now it is available. Import it and mention the type. So type is game view model. Just below to it, I'm going to create a UI state. Use my view model UI state and collect that mutable state flow or state flow in a form of state. So collect as state, which is attached to this composable lifecycle. Just below to it, I'm going to create one more composable, and this time I'm going to say this composable game screen content, which actually hold the content for this game screen. Now in this, again we have to pass modifier. By default its value is modifier. Let me just close this notification, and after that we have to pass the UI state, which is game screen dot UI state type. And within this, I'm going to use scaffold, and in this scaffold I want to pass modifiers. So just use modifier fill max size, and after that we have top bar. So in this top bar we have the title naming Gamopedia, and at the top right corner of our screen we will have a favorite icon. So in order to use that, use here top app bar. Remove this pair of parentheses. Instead of, you can use here title, and in this you can pass your text. So text is Gamopedia, and just leave it. Do not pass style or anything else. By default our top app bar have some styling to this text. So this is the title. Now we want to add the icon button at the right side of our top app bar. So for that we'll use here action. So in this action, you can attach your icon button, and in this icon button we'll use icon image vector, and this image vector is coming from icons dot default dot favorite. Favorite means the heart icon, and the content description is null. If you have any doubt, just go back to the video and rewatch it, because I'm doing this thing very slowly, because I think this is the first time you are doing Compose multi-platform development. That is why I'm doing the things very slowly, so that you can understand each and every concept very easily. Okay, so in this icon button we have on click, and in this on click you will receive the event when user click on this icon, and I want to pass this click event to my parent composable. So for that I'm going to create here on favorite click, and I want to simply transfer this thing to my parent composable. So instead of using here pair of parentheses, you can simply use here on favorite click, and that's it. We are pretty much done with it. So that's it for our top app bar. Now it is time to design the actual content. So in the actual content, we'll check our UI state is loading. If it is a case of loading, I'm going to use here modifier fill max size in my box, and my content alignment is on the center. Make sure this center is coming from alignment, and alignment is coming from n.x.compose.ui. So alignment.center, and in this I'm going to use here circular progress indicator. So this is my loading case. If our UI state error is not blank or empty, in this scenario again I'm going to use here box fill max size, and the content alignment is on the center. Make sure this center is coming from alignment. So alignment dot center, and in this Let me just use the full screen view. And in this, you can simply use a text, and in this text, you can show the error message. So that's it for our loading and error case. Now it is time to write the actual thing which user will see when will receive the response from our backend. So for that, I'm using a UI state data, and if it is not null, that means we'll receive the data. Nice. We have lazy column, and in this lazy column, I'm gonna pass a modifier. So modifier fill max size, and in this, I'm just using here items. This is a function that takes the list of items that you want to render in a form of list in this lazy column. So I want to choose the third item that has parameter list of type T, and in this I'm gonna pass my data. Now within this pair of parentheses, you can create your list item composable. So I'm gonna use here a card. This card has modifier. First we have padding of 8 dp from all the side. Just import this dp, and after that I want to use shape, rounded corner shape of 12 dp, and in this card I'm gonna use a box. So modifier fill max size, and just leave the content alignment. In this box I want to show the image. So as you can see, we are receiving image URL. We have to download that image from coil image loading library. So to do that, open up your build.gdl KTS, just control click on this ViewModel. As you can see, we have two dependency for coil. We have the coil dependency, and after that we have KTOR dependency for this coil, because under the hood coil uses KTOR Client to just download your image. Just add these two dependency in your build.gdl KTS. So for that, let me duplicate this thing. First we have libs.coil, duplicate it. Then we have KTOR, sync it. Go back to your game screen. Now async image is available that you can use in here. So we'll use here async image. In place of model, you can pass the image URL. So it dot image URL. So in this trailing lambda, you will receive one by one this list item. So we have image URL. Next we have to pass content description, which is null, and after that I'm using here modifier. So for the width, I'm using here fill max width. For the height, I'm gonna use here 350 dp. So this is my async image. Now on top of this async image, I want to show the game name. So for that, again I'm gonna use a box. Modifier, I want to take padding horizontally, let's say 12 dp. Apart from this, I want to use here background color, which is red. Make sure this color is coming from Android X Compose UI graphics. Just use it, and I'm using here color. Make sure this color is coming from Android X Compose UI graphics, and I'm interested in white color. After that, I want to change this shape. So a rounded corner shape of 12 dp. So we have a very simple box, and in this box I want to show text, and this time I'm gonna show the name of the game. And you can also use your style, which is coming from your material theme typography, and I believe body 1 looking good on this particular surface. Alright, and also if you want to add content alignment, you can do that thing, but I don't think so I need to add this. Okay, and in this text I'm using modifier. Just take padding horizontally, I will take 8 dp, and vertically I'll take 4 dp, and I'll make sure that this is a single line. So max line is 1, and after that, if text is pretty much long, on that case I'm using overflow. We have text overflow ellipsis. Alright, so we are pretty much done with our list item. If you have any problem with the UI, we can fix that thing later, but for the time being, this is our user interface. So we have game screen content, and now it is time to use this thing game screen content in here. pass your modifier which you will receive and use fill max size. Next we have to pass UI state. Just pass your UI state value, and lastly we have on favorite click. So I want to just transfer this on favorite click to my parent composable. Now pass on favorite click in here. Alright, so it's a very simple composable. I don't think so you'll have any problem regarding this composable. It's a very straightforward composable. We have UI state that contains few state, and corresponding to that state we will render our user interface. This is what we are doing right now. Okay, so we are done with this game screen. Now it is time to execute our application, but before that we have to set up two things. We have to initialize Koin dependency injection framework in our project, and also we'll have to set up navigation. So let's do that, and we can do both of the things in our composeApp module. So open up your composeApp module. First thing first, simply open up build gradle KTS, and in common main dependency I'm gonna just connect all of my modules that we have in this project, because composeApp is a entry point of our application, and entry point of our application will know every modules that is present in our project. So due to that reason we have to just connect this composeApp module to all of our other modules. So we have here project start. First we have core network, then we have core database, duplicate it. Then we have three features. First feature is search, so search as data, then search as domain, and lastly search as UI. Duplicate it. After that we'll have favorite dot data, then we have favorite domain, duplicate it, then we have favorite UI. Just duplicate couple of times, and lastly we have our game data, then we have our game domain, and lastly we have our game UI. So this will establish a connection between all of our other module. Alright, so that's it. Sync your project. Alright, syncing is done. Now it is good time to set up our navigation. So there are couple of ways using which you can perform navigation, but what we are going to do right now, we'll simply using state hosting and just transfer all of our click event which is used to perform navigation to our composeApp module, and after that we will perform navigation through this module. This is what we are going to do. So for that, in common main dependency I need to add dependency for navigation. So implementation libs, we have navigation dot compose. Let me see so this is our dependency. As you can see, this is coming from org.jetprince.androidx navigation, and for the time being this will not provide you type safety. We'll have to use here routes, string routes, in order to perform navigation. In future they might introduce type safety, but for the time being this is not present. Sync your project and come back to your composeApp, and in this composeApp open common main. Alright, so syncing is done. Now it is a good time to start navigation setup. So in this Gamopedia I'm gonna create a package, and the package name is navigation. In this navigation we have a couple of subgraphs. So basically we'll use here nested navigation that has few nested subgraphs. Just use here an object, and the object name is, because we'll have here search module, or you can say search feature, favorite feature, and game feature. So I'm gonna call this game nav graph. Similarly I'm gonna create one more object for search nav graph, and lastly we'll have favorite nav graph. So we have these three nav graph, and I'm gonna create one more interface this time. So this contains the blueprint, and I will call this base nav graph. In this interface I'm gonna create a function, and the function name is build. We have to pass here modifier, and also we have to pass the nav controller. So nav host controller, and lastly the nav graph builder, which is actually used to build our navigation subgraph. So we have these three things in our function. Now it is time to use this base navigation graph in our game nav graph. So just use your base navigation graph, implement the function build. Now in this build, what we will do? So first thing first, just create few routes. So to do that, I'm using here sealed interface naming destination, and in this destination for the time being we have only one destination, which is game screen. So I'm using here data object naming game, and this is test. Because we are not having ability of using type safety in this navigation, due to that reason we'll create routes. So in order to create route, I'm gonna use route member variable in this sealed class. So for this game, I'm using here game. Now in this build function, I'll use nav graph builder, and this nav graph builder has navigation naming extension function, and in this you can pass its route and the start destination. So let me create a route for this nested navigation. So we have data object naming route, we have test, and you can call this game route. This will represent the nested navigation route. Now it's time to use it. So simply use here dest route dot route. Use start destination as game route, because now it will become individual navigation graph. So in individual navigation graph will have start destination, and in this I'm gonna use composeApp, and in this composeApp I need to pass my route. So use destination game route. If it is the case, I'm simply using my game screen, and in this game screen I want to pass my modifier fill max size, and that's it. We have on favorite click. So if user click on favorite click, we'll navigate to our favorite screen, which is not exist for the time being, but later we will perform that navigation with the help of this nav host controller. Nice. So we have game navigation graph. So we are done with our game navigation graph. Now it is a good time to use all of this game navigation graph to build our main graph. So for that, go to your application.kt and remove all of this content and use nav host, and in this nav host we have to pass nav controller. So just create that nav host controller with the help of remember nav controller, and in this navigation host just pass your nav host controller. Then we have start destination. So in place of start destination, I'm using game navigation graph destination dot route. So it will simply open up my nested navigation for game navigation graph, and over there the first screen that user will see is our game screen. Now within this I'm gonna create a list of game navigation graph for the time being and use here for each. You can simply use here it dot build to build the main navigation graph. Pass modifier. So modifier is nothing but modifier fill max size, and after that you have to pass your nav host controller, and lastly nav graph builder. So nav graph builder is coming in a form of this to this trailing lambda. So it will build your nested navigation graph. Okay, so we are done with the navigation. Now it is a good time to set up our Koin dependency injection framework. So for that, in this Gamopedia, I'm going to create a new package, and that package name is di, and in this package I'm going to create a file, and the file name is app.di setup. So this is my file, and in this file I'm going to create a function init Koin. We have Koin application naming a lambda, and in this lambda we'll pass Koin application. Return type is unit, and by default it is null. And in this, okay, so null is not alright, so I need to just wrap this thing within a circular bracket. And now in this I'm gonna use start Koin, register all of my modules that we have. So first we have core network module, then we have get game data module, get game domain module, and lastly we have get game UI module, which is not created yet. So let me just create it. So for that, go to your game module, and in this game module open up your UI, and in this UI I'm gonna create a new package naming di, and in this di I'm gonna create a file, and the file name is game UI module. This is a file that contains a function get game UI module. Return type of this function is module, and we'll use here ViewModel, and because we want to inject ViewModel, just use here your game ViewModel and mention the parameter name or the dependency name. So in my case it is get game use case, simply use get to pass it. And lastly, register this get game UI module into your init Koin function, which is present in our app.di setup, and now simply import it. Okay, so we are pretty much done with the Koin dependency injection setup for the time being. Now it is time to do this setup individually in all three platforms. So for that, open up your Android main, and in this KOTLIN, in this Gamopedia package, I'm gonna create a base application naming class, and this class will extend application. In on create, we'll simply use the init Koin function. So init Koin, for time being just leave it. So this will eventually set up the Koin dependency injection framework for your Android. Register this base application into your Android manifest. So go to your Android manifest, mention the name, and register the base application. Okay, so we are done with this Android setup. Now we can do the same thing for iOS main. Now it is time to set up Koin dependency injection framework for iOS. So for iOS, you can simply open iOS app, which is present over here at the bottom. In this we have iOS app. Open up your iOS app.swift file, and here you can simply import your compose app module, and after that within this struct use init, and in this init we'll have app di setup kt.do init Koin. This is because of Swift interoperability. So it uses interoperability to convert all of your code so that it can use that code in iOS platform, and it will eventually become like this. So it added suffix kt and prefix do in front of our function. Okay, so this will do the setup for iOS application. Now for the desktop, you can go to the desktop main within your compose app module. So scroll down, we have desktop main, we have main.kt, and just use init Koin. So Koin dependency injection framework is set up properly in all of our platform, for Android, for iOS, and for desktop. One more thing, because Android manifest require permission for internet if you want to use internet in your project. So just add it. And now I think it's time to execute this application to see whether everything is working or not. So just execute it. For the time being, I'm executing this in my Android app. Okay, so it says Gaur Himanshu code dash database is not a valid Java package name. So we have to change it. So for that, you can go to the core database build.gl.kts, and instead of using here dash, you can simply use here capital D. Scroll down. Same goes for here. And similarly, you can do the same thing for core network. So open the build.gl.kts, scroll down. Instead of using here dash, you can use here capital N. Scroll up. Similarly, you can use here core capital N. Okay, sync your project. Alright, syncing is done. Now I'm gonna re-execute my app. Okay, so we have a problem in our game data module. This is because I think I haven't added Koin dependency injection framework dependency in this module. So let's do that. Just click on this target, scroll down, open up build.gl.kts, and yes, I think I haven't added that thing. So just add it. Implementation libs.coin.core. Okay, just copy this thing, scroll down in the domain, just check whether you have been added or not. Yes, it is added. And for the UI, I think I add that. Okay, it's in there. So again, sync your project and re-execute our application. This is a very common thing. You can do some mistakes while coding, it's not a big deal. Okay, so now I'm gonna execute my app to see this time whether it is working or not. Okay, so now it is launching, and yes, we are seeing, as you can see, we are getting our game list, but the UI is not looking very good. So but the core thing of our project is game screen, and in the game screen we have to receive the list of games, which we are currently doing right now, and it is working. So the Koin dependency injection setup is properly working, the KTOR client dependency is properly working, and we have successfully set up everything perfectly. As you can see, our application is executing, and we are seeing here the list of games. So we have GTA 5, The Witcher 3 Wild, and we have Portal 2. So basically we have a lot of image, but UI is not looking very great. So let's fix this thing. So for that, go back to your game screen, and in this game screen, in the top app bar, if you see, we have colors. So we have content color, we have background color, and in this background color I'm gonna use white. Scroll down in the lazy column. In this card we have a box that uses fill max size. So instead of using the fill max size, what I can do, I can use here fill max width, and when it's come to height, I will use 350 dp. Scroll down, we have box that has async image, height is okay, this is fine. And then again we have a box, we have a text. Okay, so I'll use here alignment just to align this box at the bottom. So align, use here small circular bracket, mention your alignment. So I want to align this thing bottom center. Alright, so I think instead of using padding here 8, let's use 12 and re-execute our application. Okay, so now this is looking fine. Now it's time to stretch this image. So for that, in your async image, we have one property naming content scale, and in this content scale you'll use crop. Just re-execute it. For the time being, we do not have any approach to see the previews in Compose Multiplatform. So this is the issue that I'm facing right now. Okay, so Portal 2. Now I want to stretch this box to cover fill max width. So let's do that. So this is our box. We have padding, we have background. So I believe we need to just stretch this thing to the whole width, and also we need to take few padding from the bottom. So for that, just use vertical padding of 12 dp and re-execute it. Okay, so now this is looking great. We have Counter Strike, we have The Witcher 3, we have GTA 5, etc. Okay, so now our application looks good. So we are done with our first screen, and now we are going to create our search feature. But before that, let me add here search text field, so that on click of that field will navigate towards this search feature. So for that, we are in the game screen, and in the top app bar, I want to add one more icon button. So icon button, remove this thing, use small bracket, and on click will do something, but later. Within this, I'm gonna use here icon image vector. We have icons default search, and its content description is null. So when user click on it, basically it represent the search bar. When user click on it, it will navigate to the search screen. So we have to just transfer this click event to our composeApp module. So for that, I'm using search click naming function and use it in here. So on search, just copy this stuff, go to your game screen and add it in here. So on search click, on search click. Okay, just control click on it, go to your game navigation graph. So now we have one more click event, which is on search click. So when user click on it, will navigate to the search screen. So it is a good time to begin our journey with search feature. So for that, first go to the search data module. So scroll up. Okay, so I think my search module located at the bottom. So just minimize everything, and after that open up your search data module. And in this I'm going to create my directory, and directory is common main. Similarly for the domain, I'm going to create a directory common main, choose the Kotlin one. And similarly for the UI, so right click on it, go to new directory, just use here common main Kotlin directory. So now in this data, open the build.gradle.kts and first establish connection to our core network module. So in this common main dependency, I'm gonna add my project core network. And after that, we also need here Koin dependency injection framework. So simply add it by using implementation libs Koin core. Sync your project. And also we need connection of this data module with our domain. So just use here project search domain, and again sync this project. Alright, so in our domain, I'm gonna create my repository. So for that, we need a package for repository, and also we need few packages for our dependency injection and the domain model. So just use here model. One more thing, in this Kotlin, I'm gonna create a chain of package like Gaur, Himanshu, search. This is domain, so use here domain, and in this you can just drag all of your packages. So first we have model, then we have repository, and lastly we have dependency injection. Now in this I'm gonna create my repository interface, and I'm gonna call it search repository. This is an interface, and we have a function suspend function search. We have to pass our query in here, and it will return me a result of type list of game. Now game is something which is present in our game module. So in this situation, because we want to use the same game, and this game is already being used in our game module, in order to encounter this kind of situation, we'll create a common module, and in this common module we will put all of the things that we want to share across the modules. Just like here game, we want to use this game in search module and also in our game module. And if you want to create this game in here, I think this is not a good idea, because you have already been created this game in your game domain model. If you open this thing up, there we go, in this model we have game, and we want to use the same thing over here, so we don't need to create this thing again. So in order to tackle this kind of situation, we'll create a module naming common. You can give the name whatever you want, but I prefer common. And this common will also contain UI, domain and data, so that you can share the data things in the data layer. You can share the domain things using domain layer or domain module, and also you can share the UI things using its UI module or UI layer. So we have UI, then we have data, and lastly I'm going to create one more package for our domain. And also we need to create build.gradle.kts file. So just use here build gradle kts. Copy this stuff, paste in your domain, and also paste in your data. Now it's time to put the content in this file. So for that I'm gonna use one of my build.gradle.kts of this domain layer. So just copy, come back to your common module UI layer Gradle file and paste in here. Change the package name. This time it will become common domain. Okay, so we are in UI, so use here common UI. Copy this package name, scroll up and change in here too. Again copy this stuff, open up your domain module and paste in here. Just use here domain instead of UI, and same thing you can do in here. Again, copy this stuff, go to your data, just paste in here, change this domain to data, scroll up, change this domain to data. And after that, we need to add these modules in our project, which is present in the get settings KTS. Just duplicate this stuff. Now this time we have common for UI, common for data, common for domain. And now you can simply sync it. Alright, so scroll up. Now we have our common module that contains 3 layers: data, domain and UI. Now we can simply transfer this game from our game domain module model. So just copy this, or simply copy this stuff, scroll up, go in the common, and in this common, first thing first, I need to create a common main directory. So just use here common main KOTLIN one, and in this I'm gonna create a package chain Gaur Himanshu common domain, and in this I'm gonna create a package for shared models. Now you can simply just drag this thing and paste in here and establish a connection between this game domain module to the common domain module. So in this common main, just use here implementation projects common domain, sync it, and similarly I'm gonna establish connection between our search domain to our common domain. So scroll down, go to the build.KTS of our search domain, scroll up, and in the common main dependency configuration you can just paste in here and sync this project one more time. Now we can very easily share the same game model that we were created when we were working with game module. Now in this search repository, as you can see, it is available. So simply import this thing, and now you can go to the data layer, and in this data layer, first thing first, we need to create package chain Gaur Himanshu. This time we have in data of what? Search. So search dot data, and here I'm going to create package for repository implementation. Then we have package for dependency injection, and after that we have mappers. Now in this repository I'm gonna just create a class, and the class name is search repository implementation. Will use search repository, and the requirement of search repository implementation is our API service. And in this I'm gonna override the function. So simply press Ctrl I and enter. So we have search, and the return type of this function is of type result that contains list of game in it. As you can see, in our game domain module we were using mappers. So because this mapper is not shareable, we cannot use the same mappers in our search domain. So what we can do, we can simply use that mapper in our common main data layer. After that it is shareable, we can share that mapper in our search module. So open up your game data module. As you can see, we have here mappers, and it will do the same thing. First thing first, let me just import this game. Okay, so it's done. So I want to share this logic across our modules because we want to use the same thing in our search module too. So for that, what we can do, we can just scroll down in the common, create a directory for common main, and in this I'm gonna create package chain Gaur Himanshu common data. Okay, and in this data I'm gonna create a package for mappers, and in this mapper I'm gonna just drag this thing. So in the game data module we have mappers, so simply drag this thing and put in your common data mappers. Okay, so this game is present in our common domain module. So now it's time to establish a connection between data to domain. So open up your build.getl.kts, scroll up in the common main use implementation projects dot common dot domain, sync it. Again go back to your mappers once the sync is completed. One more thing, this result is present in our core network module, and data layer should always know about our core network module. So again we have to establish one more connection, which is core network module, sync it. This is a major problem when you are working with multi-module projects. You have to take care everything, otherwise it will eventually break in future. Okay, go back to mapper, and this time it is available. Okay, so I think it is not available, so we have to import it. So for that I'm going to create a function, and this time I'm using the return type. As you can see now our result is available, and the location of this result is Gaur Himanshu core network model game. So just import it and copy this package, paste in here, and now it will work. Alright, so that's it for the mappers. Now it is a good time of using this thing. So go to your game data module repository. As you can see, first we have to import our game, and also we need to import this to domain list of game. So for that we need to establish a connection. Just duplicate it, use common data, sync your project, and go back to your game repository implementation. Okay, so now it is available. Just simply import this thing up and remove all of the unused imports. Okay, so we have to also check this result type. As you can see we are using here game repository. So just remove this import and change the import. Go back to repository implementation, and as you can see now everything works well. Cool. So just close this game module and come back to our search. So in this search we have search repository implementation. So first I'm using a variable naming response API service get games. So just control click on it. This time we will not use get games because we want to perform a query, and this query is only possible when we add search parameter to our get request. So instead of calling get games, I'm using here search and passing my query, and in this parameter I'm going to duplicate it. Key is search, and in place of value I'm going to pass my query, and the response structure is same. Now come back to our search repository implementation, and instead of using here get games, now we'll use here search, pass your query. This is a network request call, so sometimes it may throw an exception. So I'm gonna wrap this thing with try catch, and return type is result. So use here result.failure, pass the exception. Otherwise we'll use this response. Now we'll use response.getOrthrow. We have the results, and I want to use my mapper. So we'll have the name of that function. If you can see the mapper which is present in our common data module. So open this thing up. We have to domain a list of games. So if you want to use this extension function, what we need to do, we need to establish a connection. So in this search data module, open up the build.gradle.kts, and we should mention or add our common data module in this. Sync your project, come back to your search repository implementation, and this time we can very easily access that mapper extension function. So we have here to domain list of games. Now I'm gonna store this thing in a variable naming data, and after that I'm using my result success and pass this data, and in front of our try I'm using return. So we are done with the implementation of our search function. Now it is time to use Koin dependency injection. So for that, in this DI I'm gonna create a file, and the file name is search data module. It's a file. In this we have a function get search data module. Return type of this function is module. So I'm using here module DSL. We'll use factory, search repository interface, and implementation is given by our search repository. Name the API service parameter, and after that you can simply use in here get. So we are pretty much done with our search data module. Now it's time to begin with domain layer. So when you scroll down, we have domain, and in this domain we just create, and in this domain we are going to create our use cases. So just use your use cases, and the use case name is search game use case. This is a class, and in this class I'm gonna pass my search repository. We have an operator function naming invoke. We have to pass our search query in it, and after that I'm using a flow, and in this flow I'm going to emit values which is coming from search repository dot search, pass your query, and if anything goes wrong we'll receive that error in this catch operator, and after that I'm using result dot failure and pass my error in this. Alright, so at the end I want to execute this thing on dispatcher.io. So we are done with this use case. Now it is a good time to use our dependency injection to provide this use case. So for that, in this DI I'm gonna create a file, and the file name is search domain module. We have a function get search domain module, and it will return us a module. This module is not available because I don't think so I have added dependency for that. So just add dependency. So implementation libs Koin core. Sync your project, go back to search domain module, and this time module is available. We'll use here factory, and we'll return an instance of our search game use case, and in this we can just pass our search repository, and it is very good if you mention the name of your parameter. It will increase the readability of your code. Okay, so we are done with our domain module. So just shut down this domain module. It's time to begin our journey with user interface. So in this UI, first thing first, I'm gonna create a package chain which is Kaur Himanshu search UI, and in this we have only one screen, so I don't think so we need to create a separate package for that. So I'm gonna create a package for my DI, and after that I'm gonna create my search screen and my view model, which is search view model. Extend view model to inherit all its property, and in the search view model we will use the use case, and the use case name is search game use case. And in order to access this use case, we need to establish a connection between UI and domain. So open up your build.ketl.kts, scroll up. In our common main dependency, you can use here implementation projects search domain and sync your project. Go back to your search view model, and now it is available, search game use case. And in this, first thing first, I'm gonna create an data object naming search screen, and in this we have our data class which actually hold the stats. So is loading boolean false, then we have error, the same thing that we have been used in our game module. Lastly we have data, and this time data type is list of game. Initialize this thing with null, and in our search view model I'm gonna create a private variable UI state mutable state flow, and mention the initial type which is the search screen UI state. So this will generate an instance of our UI state, and after that we'll create an state flow using this UI state. So in order to hold the query, I'm gonna create one more variable naming query, which is a mutable state flow, and initial value is empty string. And just below to it I'm gonna create a private function. This function is used to hit our backend API and get the information. So I'm gonna call it search. We need to pass the query, and now we will use our use case. search game use case, invoke it, pass your query, and on start we need to update our UI state. So search screen UI state is loading is true. Next we'll use here operator on each, and on each will provide us result. So if result is success, we'll receive the data, otherwise it fails. So on failure we'll receive error. So if we'll receive error, we should update our state by using search screen UI state, and in place of error we need to pass the message and stringify it. If it is a case of success, we'll use UI state and update its value. Search screen UI state, and in place of data parameter we'll pass the data that we were receiving from the backend. And lastly, I'm gonna launch this thing on my ViewModel scope. So now it's time to hit this search function. How can we do it? Well, to do it, I'm using here init block, and in this init block I'm gonna use my query. So in this query, first I want to filter. If it is not blank, then only we will proceed, and after that we'll check. If the value is changed, then only we will proceed. And also I want to introduce here throttle of let's say 500 millisecond. And lastly I'm gonna collect this thing. So collect latest, and this will give you the query, sorry, not navigation. Now it is time to use this query. So just use it and trigger the API. This is an suspendable function, so we cannot use collect latest directly. For that we'll need a Koin scope. So we can create a Koin scope using our ViewModel scope dot launch, and in this I'm gonna just put this thing. That's it for our search ViewModel. So when user try to update our query, it will simply check few things. First we have filter, then we have distinct until change, and after that it will provide some throttle, so that will prevent the API call, and after that it triggers our API. And one more thing, how does our user update this query? So for that, just create a function update query, and in this you can pass q and update it by using query dot update, pass your query. So this will update the query, and further it will trigger this particular function to get the information from our backend. Cool. So we are done with our search view model. Now it is a good time to begin with our search screen. So in this search screen I'm going to create a composeable, import this composeable. This name is search screen, and in this search screen all the time I'm passing a modifier. You just pass modifier, and after that create an instance of our view model by using Koin inject or Koin view model. It is not available, so we need to add dependency for this. So in our common main dependency I'm gonna use here implementation libs Koin core, and also for compose view model. So compose view model, sync your project, come back to your search screen again, and when the sync is done, you can see you can very easily import this Koin view model. Okay, simply import this Koin view model and mention the type. So type is search view model. Just below to it I'm gonna use UI state. So use your view model UI state and collect this thing in a form of state that is attached to your composable lifecycle. And one more thing, we'll use here query. So this query is used to hold the user input. So remember savable, and remember savable contains the mutable state of empty string. If you want to do this thing, you can do that thing. Otherwise you can directly use that query, but I chose not to use the view model query in here. But if you want to use it, you can do it. There is no harm. At the bottom I'm going to create one more composable. Naming is search screen content, and in this search screen content I'm going to pass modifier. Initial value is modifier. Next will pass the UI state, which is search screen UI state, and next will pass the query. So just use query naming variable, and after that we'll have a one more function which is actually used to update our query. So I'm gonna rename it. So I'm gonna name it on query change, and in its parameter will pass string. Okay, so this is our search screen content, and in this I'm gonna use scaffold, pass your modifier, grab the maximum size, and after that you can use top bar, and in this top bar this time I'm using text field. So in place of value we'll pass query, and if our value change I'm using here on query change. Scroll down, I'm using single line, so use single line to true. Apart from this I want to also attach here modifier fill max width, so it will occupy the maximum width. Next we have colors, and in this color we'll use text field default dot colors. We have a lot of color units, and more practically I am interested in unfocused indicator color. So just let me close this notification. So I'm using here color.transparent, but before that let me just import it and make sure this color is coming from Android X Compose UI graphics. Unfocused indicator color is transparent, then we have focused indicator color, and I'm using here color.transparent. Okay, that's it. So we are done with our text field, or you can say our top app bar. Now it's time to write the actual content. So in this actual content we'll use our UI state dot is loading. If it is true we'll use box having modifier fill max size, and its content alignment is on the center, and we will show a progress indicator, circular progress indicator to be more specific. Just below to it I'm gonna use UI state error. If it is not blank, that means we'll receive some kind of error, and I'm just copy this stuff, paste in here. Instead of using a circular progress indicator I'm using text. So UI state error. Lastly, if our UI state data is not null, that means we'll receive data. If it is the case, I'm using here lazy vertical grid. As you can see, in its parameter we have columns, so I'm gonna pass here columns too. So use grid cells fixed, and we want 2 columns, so I'm using here 2. After that we need to pass modifier. So modifier, of course, fill max size, and in its trailing lambda I'm using here items. Make sure to choose item that has parameter list of type T, and in this you can simply pass your data, and one by one it will give you the item. Now I want to show the image in the list item. So for that we need to use here async image, but async image is not available in this module because we haven't added dependency. So let's do that. So implementation, libs coil, duplicate it. Next we have to add its KTOR dependency and sync it. Okay, sync is done. Go to the search screen, and now we will use async image in here. So async image, in place of model you can pass the item image URL. Content description is null. We'll use here modifier. So modifier, I want to take padding of 12 dp from all the side. Let me import this dp for you, and after that I want to change its background. So color would be transparent, and its shape is a rounded corner shape of 12 dp, and at the end I want to use here clip just to clip the shape 12 dp. So that's it. This is our list item, and we are pretty much done with this screen. Now it's time to use it. So here I'm using search screen content. Remove this trailing lambda, use small brackets. pass the modifier fill max size, and after that we need to pass our UI state. So pass UI state value. Next we need to pass the query. So pass the query value, and if our query will change, we'll simply update our query value. So query dot value, update the incoming value, and also we need to update the query which is present in our view model. So for that I'm using this query value. That's it. And when user click any of the async image, or you can say list item, we will navigate to the game detail, but for the time being we do not have any game detail, but in future we will have. So what I can do, I can create a function just to pass that click event. So on click, and in this on click we have to pass the ID, basically the game ID. Scroll down, and in this async image, in the modifier clip, I'm gonna add here clickable, and in this clickable I'm using on click and pass the item ID. Scroll up, over here I'm using on click, and I want to transfer this click event to my composeApp module. So what I can do, I can simply add this thing in a form of parameter and just pass it. Alright, so we are now pretty much done with this search screen. It's time to use it. So for that, go to your composeApp. Let me just close it, and in this composeApp common main, open up the navigation part. We have search nav graph, and in this search nav graph what I can do, we'll implement base navigation graph, and we have nav graph builder. We will create a navigation subgraph, and in this we need to pass the route and start destination, but for that we need destinations. So for that we'll create a sealed class naming dest that contains route as their member variable, and within this I'm gonna create a data object naming route. This is a dest. Extend this thing with destination, and in this I'm gonna pass search route. Next we have one more destination. So data object search, destination slash search. Now it's time to use it. So in place of your navigation route, you can pass the destination route dot route, and in place of start destination you can mention the search destination. So dest dot search dot route, and in this you can mention our composable. So we have to pass the route destination search route. Now you can simply use your search screen over here, pass the modifier fill max size. Next we have to use on click parameter. So if user click on it, we will navigate to the game details, but for time being we do not have any game detail screen, but later we will have. Okay, so we are done with our search navigation graph. Now it's time to include this thing in our navigation host. So for that, go to this application file, and here just mention your search nav graph, and it's done. Okay, so when user click to our top bar search icon, it will navigate to this search screen. So for that, go to your game navigation graph, and here you can see user click on the search icon. So what I can do, I'll use here navigation host navigate, mention the route. So route is coming from our search navigation graph dot destination dot search dot route, and yeah, this is done. Now it's time to execute our application to see whether it is working or not. But before that, we need to add all of the Koin DI module in our init function. So for that, open application DI setup KT, and in here we'll need to add get search data module, get search domain module, and get search UI module, which is not created of course. So for that, just go to the search UI module, and in this DI I'm going to create a file, and the file name is search UI module. This is a file, and in this file we have a function get search UI module, and it will return module, and usually we'll create view model in our UI layer, and the name of our view model is search view model. In this we need to pass our search game use case. Now go back to your application di setup file and just try to import it, and we are pretty much done with the Koin di. Now it's time to execute our application and see whether the navigation is working or not, and also we'll test search functionalities. Alright, so we have one issue, this game is not accessible, so just remove this import and again import it. Cut this sync process and rebuild it. Alright, so we have one more issue, and this time we are facing issue of the import. So in this search data module, it doesn't recognize this game. So because of the module connection, this issue arises. So what I can do, I can connect this module with our common domain, because data layer mostly depend on domain and also it depends on the common data layer, so it doesn't break any kind of principle. Okay, same issue I am facing with the game repository implementation. So I need to add the module connection between our common domain. Okay, re-execute the app. Alright, so we also need to add this game UI module with our common domain. So let's do that. Just duplicate this thing, attach this module with the common main domain, and similarly it goes for the search. So go to the search UI module, build.krl.kts, scroll up and add the common domain. Now sync one more time. Alright, syncing is done. So I'm gonna re-execute my app, and I believe this time it will work. No, it won't. It says there are few issues, class symbol not found for game. Okay, so let me just open search view model. Okay, in here if you can see the import, so it is importing from the, okay, this is cool. Scroll down, in the game screen we have this issue, so open the game view model, and yes, the problem arises because of the import. Scroll up, just re-execute. Okay, so finally see it is launching on my Android app. Okay, so this is the main screen, and when I click on the search, we can navigate to our second screen. And when I want to search, let's say I want to search God of War. Okay, so we have a various kind of images related to God of War. That means the integration works, but the UI is not looking very good, so it's time to just revamp little bit our UI. So for that, go to your search UI. In the search screen, what I can do, I can add a height to our async image. So after this background and clip, I want to provide height of 150 dp, and also I want to add content scale, which is crop. Scroll up, and in the text field I want to introduce placeholder so that user can see where to input the search query, and I will call it search here. Now I'm gonna re-execute the app. Okay, so this is our Gamopedia. I'll just click on the search icon, search here, God of War. Okay, so this is looking cool, but I think I need to increase the height a little bit more. So instead of using here 150, I'm gonna use, let's say 250, and re-execute my app. Okay, click on this search and search for God of War, my favorite game. Yeah, now this is looking way better than before. Alright, so we are pretty much done with our search module too. So we have successfully completed our game module first screen and the search module, or you can say search feature and game feature first screen. Now it is time to build our game detail screen, and that screen surely present in our feature game. So now it's time to build it. So now we will begin with our game detail screen feature. So for that, first thing first, we need to see the API and the JSON structure that we'll receive. So for that, let me just open this API endpoint, and when you hit it, you will get this type of response. So this response contains the detail of our game. So first thing first, I'm gonna just copy this endpoint, come back to our project and open my core network module. And in this core network module, I'll go in my API service, and in this API service at the bottom, I'm gonna just paste it and create a function, and the function name is get details. We have to pass the game ID, and corresponding to its game ID, it will return me a result of type which is not been created yet. So let's create this model class. So for that, just copy this response, come back to our project, and in this model I'm gonna create a new package, and the package name is game detail. And in this game detail, I'm using this KOTLIN data class file from JSON plugin. Just paste the response and create game response, and when you click on generate, it will create a lot of data classes for you. So this is our game response that contain a lot of information. We have here alternative names added by status. This contain few other information. Similarly, we have a list of developers. Like this, we have platforms. So here you can see we have parent platform. This contain information about the platforms. We have name, slug and its ID. Scroll down, we have publisher information over here. Again scroll down, we have rating information, and we have the store information. When you scroll down, you can see list of stores. So these stores will eventually provide you this game. Again scroll down, we have tag information. Basically we have a lot of information. So what I can do, I can just modify all of this response, and also I'm gonna change the name from this generate to generate DTO, and similarly I'm gonna change all of the class name, like added by status. I'm gonna rename it by added by status DTO because it represents data transfer object. So I'm gonna do this, and after that we'll continue. Okay, so I'm done with the changes, and also I have used here serializable annotation so that it can very easily serializable by our KTOR client. Cool. So this is our response structure that we will receive from our backend. Go back to your API service, and here we can mention the game detail response. Now in this, I'm using try catch because network request sometimes may throw an exception. Use a result dot failure and just pass the exception. And here I'm using variable naming response. Use my HTTP client dot get method, and in this get method, first I'm gonna mention my endpoint. So my endpoint is API games, and in this I'm gonna structure my URL extra information. Like I want to add parameter which is key, and it to basically use to pass my application ID that our server will use to verify. Next we have one more parameter, and this time the parameter is ID. As you can see, in this endpoint we only have one parameter, and over here we need to pass the game ID. So in this endpoint I'm gonna just mention my ID that user will pass at runtime. Okay, so that's done. This will complete our URL API endpoint structure. Now at the end I'm using body, and we are expecting here game detail response. So now we'll have the response, and it's time to use result.success and pass your response, and in front of your try just use here return. So that's it. This will use to get the information of a particular game based on the game ID. Alright, so we are done with our API services. Now just close this thing and jump into your game data module. And in this game data module, we have repository, and the blueprint of repository is present in our domain layer. Just control click on it, click on this game repository and click on this target. So this is where we have our game repository interface. Now it is time to create few domain model classes. So for that, first is game details, and this is a normal class, and in this class I'm gonna add few parameters. So we are interested in the name, its ID, type is integer, next the description, type is of course string. Next we want the image. So first image is our background image, type is string, and next we have additional image, so type is again string, and after that we will receive the platform information. Type of this thing is the list of platform. Now we have to create a new data class for this platform. So here below I'm gonna create a data class naming platform, and in this platform we have the platform name, we have the image of the platform, and that's it. We have only two information in the platform. We also have here list of store. Scroll down, create a data class naming store, and in this we'll use name parameter, we'll use image, and also it contains game count information, which is type of integer. That's it for our store. Next we have developer information, so use here developers naming member variable name, and it is a type of list of developer. And at the bottom I'm gonna create a data class naming developer. In this we have the developer name, we have its image and the game count. Use here colon instead of semicolon. Alright, so at the end we'll also receive the tags, so list of tag, and at the bottom I'm gonna create a new data class to hold information of tag. So in tag we have name and we have image. Okay, so this is my domain layer model for representing game details. So go back to your game repository, and here just create a suspend function, get details, pass your game ID, and at the end it will return you a result of type game details, and make sure this game detail is present in your domain layer model. Okay, so now go back to your game repository implementation, and here implement members. So first I'm using result API service dot get details, pass the ID. Now it will give you a result. If our result is success, then only will proceed, otherwise we'll simply use here a result failure and mention the exception. So result exception or null, and I'm very much sure that this is never null because our result is not successful. Now in here I'm using result dot success, and requirement of this thing is game detail. But if you see with your result dot get or throw, we are actually receiving here game detail response. So we have to map this game detail response with our game detail. So for that, let's create a mapper directory which is already created over here. In this I'm going to create a file, and the file name is mappers, and in this mapper I'm going to create a function which is an extension over game detail response to domain game details, and return type of this thing is game details. And within this I'm going to create one, and in this we need to create a game detail instance. Just use specify all remaining argument by name suggestion, click on the enter, and after that it will basically specify all of your parameter name. Now in this I'm using name, I'm using ID, in place of description I'm using description row, and in the background image, if you just type here background image, you will see background image is present in our game detail response, so just use it. Next we have additional background image, type here background and you will see background image additional. We have an issue in this parameter, and the issue is, okay, so it is a nullable parameter. So what I can do, I'll also make this additional image nullable. Go back to mapper. Now it's time to map platform, stores, developer and tags. So for that I'm using platform and map it. So return type of this thing is platform, and make sure this platform is coming from our domain layer. So platform, and in this just specify all of the parameter name. So we have its platform name and my platform image background. So this is for the platform. Similarly for the stores, we'll use stores dot map, and in this make sure to use store that is coming from your domain model. As you can see here, this is coming from Gaur Himanshu game domain model. Specify all of the argument by name, and here you can use its name, store image, and lastly the game count. So it dot store dot game count, and if you check its information, will also receive here domain. I want to also include this domain in my domain layer model. So for that, just go back to your domain layer game details, and in this store just mention the domain. Go back to your mappers and just include domain in here. So it dot store dot its domain. Alright, so next we have developers. So developers dot map developer, just specify all the argument by name. It dot first we have name, it dot next we have image, it dot game count. So that's it for our developer. Lastly we have tag. So just use here tag dot map tag. Make sure this tag is coming from our domain model. Specify all the remaining argument and just use here it dot its name, it dot its image background. That's it. This will do the transformation for us. Just use here return. Now go back to your game repository implementation, and you can use this result that we are getting back from our bucket and use in this to domain game details, and in front of your if you can use return. That's it. We are done with the game repository implementation. Now it's time to create a use case. So for that, go to your domain layer, and in this use case I'm gonna create a new class, get game details use case, and in this I want to use my game repository, and within this we have an operator function naming invoke, pass your game ID, and we'll use here flow, and this flow uses a result, and in this result we'll receive our game details, and this will use our game repository. So emit game repository dot get details, pass your ID, and if it is a case it will throw any kind of exception. We'll catch that exception by using this catch operator, flow operator, and emit that information. So result dot failure, just emit error, and execute this flow on dispatcher.io. Okay, now it's a good time to register this thing in our dependency injection. So open up your di module, just duplicate this thing, and instead of using here get game use case, you can use get game detail use case. Alright, so we are pretty much done with the data and domain. Now it is a good time to begin with our UI layer. So open up your UI layer, and in this we have game package. Let's create one more package which contains all of the information for our game details. And in this game detail I'm gonna create the game detail screen first. We have composeApp in this function game details screen. We need to pass here modifier, For time being, just leave it. Now it's time to begin with our game details view model. Extend this thing with view model, and in this we'll use a use case, and the use case name is get game detail use case. At the bottom I'm gonna create a data object, and data object name is game detail screen that contains our UI state. So first parameter is loading, type is boolean, and we were doing this thing I believe 2 times in this project, so it's a very easy thing for you to understand. So I'm doing the same thing. Next we have error, type is string, empty string, initialize this thing with empty string, and lastly we'll receive the data, and the type of data is game details, and initially it's null. Now in our view model, just like previous one, we'll create one more variable naming UI state, which is nothing but a mutable state flow. In this you can pass your game detail screen dot UI state, create one more UI state which is a state flow, not a mutable state flow. So UI state as state flow. Next we'll create a function get game details, pass your game ID, and in this we'll use our use case. So get game detail use case, invoke it, pass your ID, and on start will update our UI state. So UI state update, game detail screen dot UI state is loading is true. Next we have on each, and in this on each will receive the result. So if our result is successful or failure, we'll update our UI state. So if it is successful, we'll retrieve the data and update our UI state. So game detail screen UI state, in place of data you can just pass your data. Similarly for the failure, we'll receive the exception and use our UI state update game detail screen dot UI state, and in place of error we'll pass the message. So error dot message dot toString. Scroll up, and lastly I'm using ViewModel scope to launch this. Alright, so that's it for our game detail view model. It's a very simple view model. So we have UI state that hold our UI state. We have one function get game detail, which is actually used to get information from our backend, and at the end we have UI state data class. Okay, so now it's time to use game detail screen. So over here I'm gonna create our view model with the help of Koin view model. Type of view model is game detail view model. Just below to it we have our UI state. So view model UI state, collect this thing as state which is connected with our composable lifecycle, and just below to this UI state I'm going to create a new composable that contains all of our screen content. Composable game detail screen content, and just like previous one we'll pass modifier, we'll pass our UI state. For time being we only pass these 2 parameter, and in this we'll use our UI state first. So if UI state is loading is true, I'm gonna create a box having modifier fill max size, and its content alignment is on the center, and within this I'm using circular progress indicator. Scroll down, if it is a case of error, UI state error, if it is not blank on this case, just copy this stuff, paste in here, and instead of using circular progress indicator, this time I'm using text to show the error message. Okay, so now it is a good time to create our user interface on the success event. So UI state data, if it is not null, we'll retrieve the game details, and in this I'm gonna create a box modifier Okay, so now we'll continue with our main content. So for that I'm using here a lazy column, and this lazy column also contains modifier fill max size. And in this lazy column, first thing first, I want to show the background image. So for that I'm using here item async image, and in place of model I need to pass the image URL. So data dot we have background image, and when it's come to content description, it's null. Now I'm using modifier to modify its property. So modifier fill max width, and its height is 350 dp. Import this dp, and at the end I'm using its content scale to crop. That's it for our async image. Now just below to it I want to show its name. So for that I'm using text modifier fill max width, but before that I want to attach padding. So horizontally I want 12 dp and vertically I want 12 dp, same. Next, in place of text I am using data dot its name, and I want to change its style. So make sure this style is coming from our material theme typography dot, and in this we have a lot of text style that we can use, and we are particularly interested in h4. Alright, so user will see the async image, or you can say image of the game and the name of our game. So for the time being just leave it. We will see whether it is working or not. So for that just use this game detail content within your game detail screen and pass your modifier fill max size, and in place of UI state you can pass your UI state value. Now we are going to attach this game detail screen in our navigation graph. So for that scroll up, open up your composeApp, common main, KOTLIN, and in this navigation we'll have game navigation graph. So simply open this, and within this I'm gonna create a data object naming details. So in the destination we'll call this game details slash we have to pass the id, and in this I'm gonna create a function which actually provide me a route with the id information. So I'm gonna say this get route, pass your id, and at the end it will return you the route with this id. So games underscore details slash the id that you want to pass, just mention it over here. Alright, so now it is a good time to navigate. So this contains on favorite click and on search click. Now we want to add one more event which actually transfer the click event on our game list item. So click on this game screen, go to this game screen content, scroll down. So this is our list item, and in this I want to attach a clickable event, and in this clickable event we'll use on click and pass the game id. Okay, so we'll receive here it dot id. Scroll up, just create this lambda function in your game screen content. So on click int unit, copy this stuff and paste in your game screen too, and use this on click in here. Control click on this game screen, go to game navigation graph, and now we have one more click event on click. Now in this case I'm using nav host controller perform a navigation, and in place of route I'm using my details dot get route and pass the id. So this will do the navigation for us. Alright, so let's execute the application to see whether it is working or not. Alright, so app is executed successfully, and when I click on this Grand Theft Auto, alright, so our application crashes, and this is because I haven't attached my screen in my nested navigation subgraph. So let's do that. So in here I'm gonna use a composable, and in this composable I need to pass its route, which is details dot route, and within this I want to use my game detail screen. Pass the modifier, and yeah, that's done. We have to also retrieve the ID that user passes from our game screen to game detail screen, and after that we'll also need to trigger our API call. So for that I'm gonna create a ID naming variable and use my it dot argument get string and mention the argument name, which is ID in my case, and I want to pass this ID in my game detail screen. So for that just use this ID, open up your game detail screen, use ID, type is string, and in this I am using a launch effect block. I'm using key as ID, and within this we'll use our ViewModel dot get game details and pass the ID and convert this thing into an integer. Now I want to re-execute my application. Okay, so we have a problem, and the problem is this ID. Just convert this thing into a string. So sometimes it may come null. That is the reason why it says you should stringify this thing. Okay, so application is executing. Now when I click on it, okay, so our application is crashing. Alright, so this issue arises because I haven't attached my view model in my Koin dependency injection framework. So for that, go to your game module, and in this game go to the UI layer, and in this DI I want to attach my game details view model, and this time we need to pass the detail use case. So just remove it, specify the argument with name and use get. Okay, now re-execute our application, and this time surely it will work, I believe. Okay, so here you can see I am receiving the game list, and when I click any of them, alright, so I'm seeing the details. So now it is a good time to design all the remaining component of our game detail screen. In our game detail screen, I'm gonna add description. So for that I want to create an item, and in this item I want to show the description. So text, and in this text I'm gonna pass my text. This is coming from our data dot description, and I want to also choose here style, which is coming from material theme typography, and this time I'm gonna choose here body 1. Use modifier and padding. So horizontally I want to choose 12 dp, and vertically I want to choose 8 dp. Fill max width. So that's it for our description. Now just below to it I'm gonna create an item, and in this item I'm using a column. In this column again I want to pass modifier, fill max width, and in this column I want to attach a header, and the header name is platform. So basically I want to mention here all of the platform informations. When it's come to style, I want to choose here material theme dot typography, and in this if you check we'll have here headings. So we have 6 different types of text style, and we are interested in subtitle, sorry, no, H4. So this is our platform header. Now I want to also take some padding. So I'm using here modifier padding horizontally, I'll take 12 dp, and also I want to introduce padding from top, and this time I want to take 16 dp padding or 24 dp. Just below to it I want to use here a lazy row. Use modifier, fill max width, basically take the whole width which is available to our mobile device, and in this lazy row use items, and make sure to choose items that has parameter list of type t, I mean this one, and in this I want to pass my platforms. Now we need to create the list item. So for that I'm using card, and in this card I want to pass modifier wrap content size for the time being, and also I want to dictate its size rounded corner shape which is 12 dp, and also I want to add here elevation of 6 dp. Now in this card I want to use here a column, and this column has modifier and its width is 150 dp, and in this column I want to use my async image, pass your model, and this model basically you have to pass the image URL, so it dot pass your image URL. Next we have to pass its content description which is null. Next I want to pass modifier, so modifier background, and I want to choose here color transparent, so make sure to choose color which has which is coming from Android X Compose UI graphics, transparent, and I want to use here circle shape, and also at the end use here clip circle shape. Alright, so we are done with our image. Now just below to it I want to also show the platform, so for that I'm using text, and in this text I want to show the name of my platform, and when it's come to style, this style is again coming from our material theme typography, and this time I'm using here caption. Also I'm using modifier just to take padding, so modifier padding vertically I want to take padding of 8 dp. So that's it for our platforms, and also in our card I want to attach padding of 12 dp from all the sides. Okay, so we are done with our platforms information. Now simply minimize it, and yes, we are done with this particular item. Similarly I'm gonna just copy this item, and here again I'm gonna paste it, and this time I want to show all of the stores which has this game in their inventory. So for that just change this thing from platform to stores, and I do not want to use here lazy row, instead I want to use here lazy column. So we cannot use a lazy column within our item, but we are already in the context of our lazy column, so we can very easily use here items. So just use here items, and in this items as you can see we have list of type t, so I want to choose this one. We have data dot stores, and now it's time to create our list item for stores. So for that I want to use here row. This row have modifier fill max width, and also I want to take padding horizontally of 12 dp. Now in this row again I want to use here async image. In place of model I want to pass my image, and in place of content description I'm using null when it's come to modifier. So I'm using here size of 120 dp, and also I want to change its size from a rectangle or square to a rounded corner shape. So for that I want to choose here color transparent, and after that I want to pass my shape which is rounded corner shape of 12 dp. Okay, now I want to use here spacer having modifier dot width of 8 dp. Then I'm using here column, and in this column I'm using modifier and its weight is 1f, and in this column I want to show three information. I want to show the name, I want to show the domain, and also I want to show its game count that this store currently have in their inventory. So for that we'll need here text. So first information says its name, and next I want to use here style which is coming from our material theme typography, and I'm using here subtitle 1. Okay, introduce modifier, and if you want to take padding from the end you can use padding, and from end I want to take padding of 8 dp. Next I want to use here spacer of height 8 dp, and just below to it I want to show its domain, so it dot domain, and in place of style I'm using my material theme typography, and this time I'm using here body 2. Again I'm gonna use here spacer of height 8 dp, and just below to it I want to show the next information, which is it dot game count, and just before this I'm adding here game count. And when it's come to style, again I'm gonna use my material theme dot typography, and this time I'm interested with caption. And in this domain I want to also add the underline. So for that we have text decoration, and in this text decoration you will receive underline, so just use it. Okay, so we are done with our store information. Just minimize this, and now we are going to create the tags that we are receiving from this API endpoint. So for that again I'm using this item, paste in here, and this time I'm gonna say this tags, and in this again I'm gonna create one more item, and in this item I'm using flow row. So in this flow row is experimental layout API, so we have to annotate our composable with this. Now I'm using modifier padding of horizontally 12 dp and fill max width. Now in this I'm gonna iterate within our list of tags that we are receiving from the backend. So data dot tags for each, and in this for each I'm receiving one by one my tags. So now it is a good time to create our list item, or you can say flow row item. So for this I'm using row, and in this row I want to use here async image, and in place of model I'm gonna pass my URL. Content description is null when it's come to modifier. So for time being I'm using here 30 dp, and also I want to change its shape. So for that I'm using color transparent, and my shape is circle shape. Okay, so we are done with our async image, and just after that I'm using a spacer modifier, and width is 4 dp. Just after that I want to show the tag. So in place of text I'm using it dot its name, and in place of style I'm using material theme typography caption. And also I want to use this row shape as a rounded corner shape. So for that just use here modifier, and in place of your background you can use color transparent, or instead of using transparent we'll use here white. And after that in place of shape I'm using here rounded corner shape of 200 dp, and just after this use clip and pass the same shape, which is rounded corner shape of 200 dp. So we are done with this tags too. So just to minimize this thing, and lastly we'll left with developers. So just copy this thing up, paste in here, and instead of using here tags use developers. In this we'll use here items, because we want to show a list that is scrollable vertically. So we are already in the context of lazy column, so we can use here items, and in this items I'm gonna pass my developer information. So data dot developers, and within this we'll create our list item. So list item is pretty much same that we have been created for these stores. So instead of creating the same thing one more time, I'm gonna just copy this thing, come back to our developers and paste in here. So image is fine, spacer is fine. Instead of this domain, if you check, we'll only have here game count, image and name. So remove this information. Alright, so we are pretty much done with our detail screen. Now it's time to execute our application to see the design, how it is looking. So for that just execute it. Okay, so I'm gonna choose the GTA 5. There we go. this is my description, this is my platform. Okay, so this is not looking good. Okay, so we need to fix it. And if you check all these things, yeah, everything is looking fine, but there are few enhancement required. So let's do that. So first let's fix this card. So for that, let me minimize this thing, scroll down. The first list is platform list. So we have image, then we have the title, then we have description, and this is a place of platforms. Now in this platform, if you can see, our async image behave very badly. So let's fix it. So in this item, async image, I want to restrict this async image to a certain size. So for that, I'm using here size, and size is, let's say, 120 dp. You can play with it, it's totally up to you. And also in this column, I want to pass horizontal alignment, which says center horizontally. Okay, so now I want to execute this thing one more time. Scroll down. Alright, so this time it is looking good, but spacing is a little big because I'm not using here content scale crop. So let's use it. So in this async image, use content scale crop. Alright, and scroll down. In the stores, I'm gonna use the same thing. So within our stores, extend this, we have row, we have our async image, and in this async image, size is fixed. Lastly, I want to use here content scale. So content scale is crop. Okay, so this is for the stores. When you scroll down, okay, same thing I'm gonna use for these tags. So scroll down, go to the tag section. Here we have flow row, and in this row, my async image size is 30 dp, which is I think little small. So let's use here 35. And in this async image, I want to pass my content scale to crop. And also in this row, use vertical alignment, center vertically. Alright, so in this flow row, we have few more parameters. So just press here Ctrl P. As you can see, we have horizontal arrangement, vertical arrangement, maximum item in each row, maximum lines, overflow, content. So we have various kind of parameters in here. If you want to change it, you can do that thing very easily by using these parameters. Okay, let me just re-execute it. Okay, so it is executed. Now when I click on this GTA 5, scroll down. Okay, so now our platform looks a little cool. Scroll down. So store images is looking fine, but this is not looking so much good. So we need to add padding across these images. And for the tags, yeah, this is also looking good. But the thing is, I need to add here a little bit of padding. So let's do that. So first, let's fix this padding in the platform. So scroll up, go to the platform section. So this is our platform section. We have our async image, and in this async image, I'm going to introduce padding from top 8 dp. Now when I execute our application, okay, so now our platform looks cool. Nice. Now it's time to fix the UI issues for our stores list. So scroll down, we have stores, and also in this stores, I want to attach padding from bottom of 12 dp. Now in this data stores, we have our async image. So rounded corner shape is not working in here. So what I can do, I'm using here clip and just forcefully clip 12 dp. And in this row, I want to attach padding. Now this padding is from the bottom of, let's say, 8 dp. Now when I execute my application, okay, so now this is looking good, but the title text is looking a little small, so I'm gonna increase its text size. So for that, scroll down, this is the text. Instead of using a subtitle, we'll use, let's say, H4, just to see how it looks. For the time being, in Compose Multiplatform you cannot see the preview, so this is the reason why I am doing this hit and trial method. Okay, so this is looking little bit, let's say H6. Yes, now this is looking good. Alright, so this is done for the stores, and if you look out the tags, so tag is looking like it's collided everywhere, so I need to fix it. So for that I want to introduce here padding. So in the text, in the flow row, in this particular row I want to attach padding. So from top I want to attach 8 dp, from the end I'm gonna attach the same 8 dp. Okay, so now as you can see our tag image is not in a proper circle manner, so I want to change its shape too. So after this background I want to attach clip circle shape. Okay, click on this GTA5, scroll down, and yeah, now this is looking good. Okay, so we are done with the tags too, and if you want to attach padding more you can do that thing. Let's say instead of using 8, let's use 12 dp, so it looks a little more cool. Now it's time to fix the developer list item. So scroll down, and in the developers what I can do, so first in the async image introduce here content scale, crop, and also use the clip of a rounded corner shape of 12 dp. So this will fix the issue of image, and just scroll down, scroll up basically, and in this row use here vertical alignment. So this alignment is center vertically, and just change this text style. So scroll down, in place of column just use here H6 and re-execute our application. Click on this GTA5, scroll down. Okay, so this is looking good, but the thing is this rockstar north goes to the center, and this is something which is not looking very good, and also the padding issues I am facing over here. So let's fix both. So here in this row add padding, and from the bottom let's use 8 dp. So this will fix this padding problem, and apart from this we have to also fix this issue. So in order to fix this issue, what we can do, we can remove this center vertically. Instead we'll use top. So top center, top end, top start. So in this I'm using top. Okay, so now I want to re-execute my app. Okay, so scroll down. Okay, so this is looking good, and now it's time to add padding in between your developer title and your list item. So for that scroll up, and in this developer text, in this modifier we have horizontal padding, and also we have top padding. In this you can add the bottom padding, which is 12 dp, and this will fix this problem. And also I want to attach a border. Let me just show you. Okay, so this is looking good. Now in this tag I want to attach a border so that every tag look closed within a certain boundary. So for that just scroll up in the tag section. Over here we have this list item, and in this list item, in between our background and clip, I'm gonna attach border. And if you check its parameter, we have to pass width, so I'm using here 1 dp. We have to pass the color, so color is black, and raster is shape. So in place of shape you can use the same shape that we were using in background and our clip. So rounded corner shape of 200 dp. Okay, so re-execute it to say whether it is working or not. Click on GTA5, scroll down, and yes, this is looking a little cool, but we also need to add padding in our text. So scroll down, and in this text use modifier, and in padding just use end padding of 8 dp. Now re-execute it. Okay, so this is looking cool, but my width size is 1 dp and this is looking more bad. So instead of using black, I'm using here light gray, and instead of using 1, I'm using here 0.5 dp. Now when you execute it, it looks a little better than the previous one. Okay, scroll down. Yes, now this is looking way better than before. Alright, so we are done with our game detail screen UI. Now it's time to design our top bar. So in order to design top bar, just scroll up and minimize this lazy column. And we are in the box, and in this I'm gonna create a row which has modifier fill max width, and in this I'm gonna use 3 icon button. So first icon button is used to go back, so on click, and in this lambda I'm gonna use icon. So parameter is image vector, and I'm gonna use here by default coming icons. So import this icon, default arrow back, and its content description is null. Okay, so this is my first icon button, and also I want to add background. So modifier, and I'm gonna use here background color white. So color dot white, and its shape is circular. So use here shape circle shape. Okay, now in this icon again I want to use here modifier and padding of 4 dp. Okay, so this is for the back. Now just duplicate this thing. Now this is used to store this thing or this game detail information in our local database, or you can say save as a favorite. So I'm using your favorite. Again just copy this thing and paste in here, and this time I'm using this icon button to delete the saved information in our local database. So we have 3 different icon buttons, and in between this I'm gonna use here spacer because I want to push these 2 icon of favorite and delete at the right side. So I'm using here modifier, weight of this thing is 1f. Okay, so let's execute it and see how it looks. GTA 5. Okay, so this is looking cool. Now it's time to attach little padding from the top and the horizontally. So in this row I'm attaching padding. So horizontally I'm using a 16 dp, and from the top I'm using here 16 dp again. So now when I execute it, open GTA 5, and yes, this is looking way better. Now it's time to attach. Now it's time to add spacing in between these 2 icons. So for that I'm just copy this spacer, paste in here, and instead of using here weight, I'm using here width, and width is 12 dp. Re-execute it to see whether it is looking good or not. Yes, this is looking cool. Alright, so we are done with our game detail screen UI. Now it's time to transfer this click event to our parent composeable. So for that, let me just add few lambdas in our game detail screen content. So first is on delete, and in this on delete we'll pass the ID that we want to delete. So ID is a type of integer. Next we want to save information in our local database. So for that I'm using here on save, and in this we need to pass ID, we need to pass title, and also we need to pass our image. Type is string and return type is unit, and lastly on by click. So when user click on the on by click, will simply navigate to the previous screen. So now it's time to use it. Scroll down. So we have on by click in here, so use on by click. This is used to store your information in your local database. So for that I'm using here on save, and in place of id I'm using data.id, in place of title I'm using data.name, and in place of image I'm using data background image. Similarly, if you want to remove it, we'll use here on delete and we need to pass the id only. Okay, scroll up and use all the lambda. So just use here alt enter, specify all the remaining argument by name. So on delete will handle later, on save will handle later, and in the on back click again we want to transfer this click event to our parent composable, or you can say in the compose app module. So for that I'm just copy this lambda and in my game detail screen I'm gonna pass it and use it. So on back click. Okay, so on save we'll retrieve id, then we'll retrieve its name, and lastly image. Okay, control click on this game detail screen, go to your game navigation graph and add on by click in here. If user click on it, we'll simply use pop back stack. Okay, so we'll perform navigation from our game screen to our game detail screen. So now it's time to perform the navigation from our search to this game detail screen. So for that, go to your compose app module and in our search navigation graph scroll down. So when user click on our item, we'll use navigation host controller dot navigate. Now it's time to pass our route. So route is coming from our game navigation graph dot test dot details, and in this we have a function naming get routes. You can simply pass your id. Okay, so now I'm gonna execute it to see this connection is working or not. Okay, so I'm gonna click on the search icon and here I'm typing God of War, my favorite game. Scroll down, we have this Ragnarok image, just click on it. We have Kratos, Atreus, we have all the icons, and when you scroll down you will see all of the information. Okay, so when I click to this icon button, we'll navigate to the previous screen. So yeah, everything is working perfectly fine. So now we are pretty much done with the normal features. It's time to include the caching thing in our Compose Multiplatform project. So for that we'll use SQLDelight. Room database is available, but that thing is currently in the beta. So it's better to choose SQLDelight for the time being. In future, room database might be stable. So at that time you can use it, but for the time being, I'm gonna choose SQLDelight over room database. So just minimize this thing and open up our core database module. So because this core database module contains the database logic thing, I mean the database creation and the queries that we want to perform, and also it contains the SQL queries. So let's create SQL database in our core database. So for that, in our build.getl.kts, I want to add the plugin for SQLDelight. So SQLDelight plugin, scroll down. We have to also attach dependency for our common main, for our desktop, iOS and Android main. So first we'll add dependency of SQLDelight for Android. Next we need to do the same thing for our common main. Implementation libs SQLDelight for common, and also I need to add dependency for coroutine, and I'm gonna make this an API. So the main difference between implementation and API is implementation dependency information is only available within your module, but if you are using API, this information is available to the other modules which in future may connect with your core database module. So this is the difference between implementation and API. Now for the desktop main, I'm using the same one, implementation libs SQLDelight for desktop, and for the iOS I'm using the iOS dependency. So implementation libs SQLDelight for iOS. Okay, sync your project. Syncing is done. Now we are going to create SQL file, and on that SQL file we'll have everything. So first we will create table naming game, and after that we'll write SQL queries on that table. So for that, in this core database common main, I'm gonna create a directory, and the directory name is SQL SQLDelight, and in this SQLDelight I'm going to create a package chain. So Gaur Himanshu / core database, and within this now I'm going to create our SQ file, and the file name is app database SQ. Make sure the extension is SQ, which represent SQLite file. Now in this first we'll create our table. So create table, naming game, we have ID, type of this thing is integer, this is not null, and eventually it is representing my primary key. Next we have image, type is text, also this is non-nullable, and lastly we have game name, type is text, of course it is also not null. So this will create a table for us in our database. Now it's time to write the SQL queries which we want to perform on this table. So for that we have a function naming upsert. So this upsert function will be created by our SQLDelight library. So this is not on us. We simply write the instruction and it will under the hood create everything for us. So in this upsert we'll use this function to insert or update. So insert or replace into my game table, and in this game we have 3 columns. So we have ID, we have image, and we have name, and this values is coming from in the form of parameter from this upsert function. So that parameter is only created when you use your values question mark, and question mark. So that's it for our upsert. Now we want to get all of the information from our database. So for that I'm having a function get all games, and this is very simple query, select asterisk from our game. So instead of using here colon, use your semicolon. Lastly we have one more function delete. So this will eventually delete information from our game table. So delete from our game table where the ID is user pass ID. So that's it. This will create a table, and these are the functions that we will use in a repository to perform SQL operations. Okay, so now it's time to mention all of this table information in our build.get.kts in order to generate the implementation for this application database. So in our build.get.kts over here we have SQLDelight closure, and in this closure we have databases closure. In this database closure we have to pass information about our application database.sql file. Now in this we'll use create function and mention our database name, which is app database. If you want to give any other name, it's totally up to you. Mention our package name. So package name is Gaur Himanshu core database. As you can see over here, Gaur Himanshu core database. Next, the source directory. So source directory is source/common main/SQLDelight. So this will complete your location. So source, common main, SQLDelight, and my package name is Gaur Himanshu core database, and within this we have our SQLite file. Okay, so now simply sync your project. Alright, syncing is done. Now it's time to create a driver, SQL driver. So this driver is actually used to communicate with our SQLDelight databases. So for that, in our core database I'm gonna create a package, and the package name is di. So in this we have to put all of our di things. Next we'll create a file, and this file name is SQL driver factory. Make this as a class, and in this class we'll pass context. Type of this thing is any, and it is by default null. And within this class we have one function get SQL driver, and return type of this function is SQL driver, and make this function expect. So if you get any function with expect, that means its actual implementation will be given by your platform. So let's say I want to create application for Android. So this implementation will be taken from our application main actual implementation. Similarly, if you create desktop application, so the implementation for this class is used that is present in your desktop main. Alright, so now it's time to give its actual implementation in our platforms. So for that, let me just add all of my platforms first. So directory, I want to add my Android main, and in this Kotlin I'm gonna create a package. So package is core Himanshu core database. Just copy this database information and create one more directory for our desktop main, and in this just paste your package information. Next, create one more directory for iOS main. Make sure choose source iOS main / Kotlin, and in this I'm gonna paste my package structure. Now it's a good time to write actual implementation for this class. So I'm gonna just copy this, go to my Android main, and in this core database I'm gonna create a file, and the file name is Android SQL driver factory. Okay, so it's a file, and in this I'm gonna paste my copied code from common main, and instead of using here expect, this time I'm using actual, and make sure your constructor is also used actual, and this function is also use actual. Okay, now in this I'm going to create my Android SQL driver. So first we have to pass our application database schema. So we have app database dot schema. Next we have to pass context. Now this context, make sure this is excluded. Okay, so we have an issue, and issue is related to the spelling mistake, so just fix this, use here expect. Now go back to your Android SQL driver. Now everything looks cool. Now I'm going to create a private variable naming context and initialize this thing with incoming context, and I want to check this context is a type of context which is present in our Android. So I'm using here check pass this context, and we'll check if it is a type of context, then we'll simply initialize. Next we have to pass context, so simply pass it, and lastly the application database name, so app database.tb, and at the end simply return it. Okay, so we are pretty much done with this actual implementation for Android platform. Now we do the same thing for desktop and iOS main. So let's do the same thing for our iOS main first. So go to your SQL driver factory, just copy this stuff, go to your iOS main, and in this core database package I'm gonna create iOS SQL driver factory. It's a file, and in this file I'm gonna paste my expect class, use here actual, remove this initialization of your context, actual constructor, and in this we'll use a return native SQLite driver, and in this if you check its parameter we have to pass schema. Let me just show you. We need to pass schema, then we need to pass name, so just use it, application database dot schema, and in name I'm using application database dot db. Use actual in front of your function too. So we are pretty much done with this iOS main actual implementation of class SQL driver factory. Now let's do the same thing for desktop. So in desktop core database just create a file, and the file name is desktop SQL driver factory, paste it, and here we have JDBC SQLite driver, and in this we have to pass our URL. So URL is something which is pretty much unique, JDBC SQLite dot app database dot db. Alright, so we are done with our SQL driver factory. Now it is a good time to provide this SQL driver factory with the help of Koin dependency injection framework. So for that, scroll down, go to your build.gradle.kts, and in your common main add dependency for Koin. So implementation libs Koin core, sync your project, go back to your common main, and in this ti I will create a file, and the file name is core database module. We have function get core database module, and the return type of this function is module, and this is an expect function, and its actual declaration will be given by the platforms. Just press Alt Enter and create its actual implementation in iOS main. So this is for the iOS main. Go back to your core database module and let's do the same thing for Android main and iOS main, sorry, desktop main. Okay, so now I'm gonna return it. Return module single instance of my SQL driver factory, get SQL driver. So this will return you SQL driver. So we are done with the desktop. Now let's do the same thing for our Android. So in Android we'll use return module single instance of our SQL driver factory. We need to pass here context. So get context, get SQL driver. Okay, so we are done with desktop and Android. Lastly, we need to do the same thing for our iOS. So for that, open up your iOS main DI core database module, remove this, use here a return module, create a single instance of your SQL driver factory and provide us SQL driver for iOS main. So we are pretty much done with our core database setup. Just simply close this thing up, go to your Compose application and in your build.gradle.kts connect this module with our core database module. So we have here projects.core database, and also in your init Koin function we need to add this module which is present in our core database. So open up your DI app DI setup and over here use get core database module. Alright, so now we are pretty much done with the Koin dependency injection setup for our core database, and we have already been added that module in our init Koin function. So now it's a very good time to begin with our favorite feature. Now in this favorite feature, in this data module, first thing first I need to connect this module with our core database module. So for that, in common main I'm using implementation projects core database, and also we need to connect with our feature favorite domain. In our domain layer, first thing first, let me just add my common main directory in here. So common main for KOTLIN, and also I'm gonna create my package chain. So go Himanshu, this is my favorite, so use here favorite domain, and in this domain I'm gonna create my repository, my DI and my use cases package. So DI and use cases. And one more thing, I want to connect this domain module with our common domain because common domain contains information about the game model. So just scroll down and over here in the common main use implementation projects common domain, sync your project, and in this repository let me create favorite repository, and in this favorite repository we have a function get all games, and return type of this thing is flow, a list of game, and this game is coming from our domain model. Import this flow. Next we have a suspendable function upsert, which is actually used to insert information. So it simply passes the ID type of integer, then it passes, instead of title I'm gonna call this name, type is string, and lastly we have image, type is of course string. So this is for the insertion and updation. Lastly we have to use a delete, pass the ID. So this is my favorite repository. Now it is a good time to write its implementation. So for that, go to your data module, and this data module first let me create common main directory, and in this common main I'm gonna first generate my package chain which is called Himanshu favorite data, and in this I'm gonna use another package naming repository, and in this repository I'm gonna create a class, and the class name is favorite repository. Instead of calling this favorite repository, let's rename it from favorite repository to, let's delete it. So now I'm gonna create a repository implementation, and name of this thing is favorite repo implementation, and this uses our favorite repository. Just override all of the functions that we have. We have get all games, upsert and delete, and in this favorite repository implementation I want to pass my application database. So first let's get all of the game from our database. Application database, we have app database queries, get all games, and in this next I want to convert this thing in a form of flow, and after that I want to map this thing into list on my dispatcher.io. Now if you check, the return type of this thing is flow of list of games. So I'm using here map, and in this map we'll receive the list of game, and I want to do the transformation. So basically I want to do transformation into game, and this game is coming from our common domain model. So if you just specify all of the argument by name, so we have id, we have name, and we have image. Okay, so this id gives me problem, and I believe this is because the type. Change the parameter id type to primary constructor of class game to long. Okay, so this database id is coming in a form of long, so I just need to convert this thing into integer. Okay, so now we have a list of game, and I will return it. Cool. So this will give you all the information that we have in our game table. Next we will do the upsert. So for that, just use your application database, app database queries, and we have a function naming upsert, and in this upsert just pass id and convert this thing into long. Next we have image, and lastly we have name. If you want to perform deletion, just use your application database, app database queries. In this we have delete, pass your id in a form of long, so convert this thing into long. Okay, so we are done with our favorite repository implementation. Now we'll create dependency injection module. So for that, in this data I'm gonna create a package, and the package name is ti. In this ti I'm gonna create a file, and this file name is favorite data module. This is not a class, it's a normal file, and in this we have a function get favorite data module, and the return type of this function is module. We'll use here return module and create a factory, and in this factory I want to return implementation of my favorite repository, and implementation is given by our favorite repository implementation. So here we need to pass app database, use get, and mention your application database. Okay, so we are done with our data module. Now it's time to go in our domain and write the use cases. So right click, new KOTLIN. This is a class, and first class is actually used to get all local cache games use cases. Okay, so in this I need to pass my favorite repository, and within this I'm gonna create an operator function naming invoke, and we'll directly use our favorite repository dot get all games. So we are done with our first use case, which is get all local cached game use case. Next we'll have an use case which is actually used to update or insert the game in our local database, and I will call it upsert use case. In this class I'm simply pass my favorite repository. We have operator function invoke, we need to pass our id, we need to pass our, let's say instead of using title, let's use here image, because in our database column we'll use first id, then image, then name. So just maintain the order, and lastly name. We will use our favorite repository upsert, pass the id, then we pass image, and lastly we'll pass name. This is a suspendable function, so make sure here use suspend operator function. Just sort this thing out. Remove this function. Okay, so next we have delete. So right click, new, delete use case. We need to pass our favorite repository. We have operator function invoke. We need to pass the id. Just use your favorite repository delete and pass your id. Make sure to use your suspend function. Okay, so this is an suspend operator function invoke. Lastly, use in this di, just create a file and the file name is favorite domain module. This is not a class, it's a file, and in this file we have a function get favorite domain module, and return type of this function is module, and make sure this module is coming from our Koin core. So I think this is not attached in our build.gradle.kts. So go to your build.gradle.kts of your domain layer and use the Koin dependency. So libs Koin core, sync your project, come back to your favorite domain module, and after the sync completed you will see module is available to import. Okay, so module is available, simply import it, and within this I'm using return module, and in this factory I'm gonna provide my delete use case first. Next we have one more factory for get all local cached games use case, and in this we'll simply pass our favorite repository. Lastly we have a factory for providing our upsert use case, simply use here get. Okay, so that's it for our favorite domain module. So simply minimize it, and now it's a good time to begin our journey with UI. So in this UI, first let me create directory for common main, and in this common main I'm gonna create our package chain. So Gaur Himanshu favorite UI, and in our build.gradle.kts scroll down in our common main. First thing first, I want to establish a communication or connection between our domain layer. So we have here projects, favorite, and lastly domain. Sync your project, and also establish connection with your common domain, because common domain contain the game data model, that's why. So we need to sync one more time. Alright, so now it's time to add dependency for our Koin dependency injection framework. So implementation libs Koin core, duplicate it. We have one more dependency for compose ViewModel, sync it. Okay, so now go back to your core database, and in this core database we haven't tell a way to our Koin dependency injection framework to create our application database, because we are injecting application database in our repository. So our Koin dependency injection framework should know how do they create application database. So for that, go to your core database common, and in our di, so in di we have get core database module. So this is an expect function, and we are basically giving its implementation on each platform. So let's go to your Android main first, and in this Android main open Android SQL driver factory. So this will provide you SQL driver implementation for Android platform. We have di, and in this di we are only providing SQL driver. So just below to it I'm going to create one more single. I'm using application database invoke, and a requirement of this thing is SQL driver. So use here get and mention the type SQL driver. Similarly, just copy this stuff, go to your desktop main di, just paste this thing in here. Similarly for the iOS main, open up your di, go to your core database module, just paste in here. And now we are pretty much done with our core database. Scroll down, open up your favorite UI layer, and in this UI we wanna create our screen and view model. So first we have our favorite screen, this is a file. Next we have our view model, which is favorite view model. This class extend view model to inherit all of its property, and within this we have two use case. So first use case is get all local cached game use case. Next we have delete use case, and this use case is nothing but is used to delete our game that is present in our local database. In this view model, we have a variable naming games, and I'm using here get all local cached game use case, invoke it, so this will return me a flow, and I want to observe this thing in a form of state. So for that, I will convert this flow into a state flow. So we'll use state in, and in this state in we need to pass our view model scope. Next, the started. So started, I'm using here sharing started while subscribed, and lastly the initial value, which is empty list. Next, we have one function which is actually used to delete our game information from our local database, and I'm using here ViewModel scope to launch a new coroutine scope, and in this I'm using delete use case, invoke, and pass my ID. So that's it. This is all for our favorite view model. Now go back to your favorite screen and write its screen. So I'm using here composeApp. Import this composeApp function, and the function name is favorite screen, and in this favorite screen we'll pass modifier, initialize with modifier. We have one more composeApp, and the composeApp name is favorite screen content, and in this favorite screen content we'll pass modifier. Next, we have games, which represent the list of game. Make sure this game is coming from our common domain model. Okay, now in this I'm using scaffold, and in this scaffold I'm gonna pass my modifier fill max size. We have top bar, and in this top bar I'm using top app bar. We need to mention the title, so title is nothing but it says favorites. Okay, so that's it for our top app bar, and also I want to attach the arrow back button. So for that we'll use here a navigation icon, and in this navigation icon I'm using icon. Make sure you choose icon that has parameter of image vector. So use image vector icons, import this icon first, default arrow back, and content description is null. Attach a modifier clickable event, so when user click on it I want to basically navigate to the previous screen. So for that, let's use here a function naming on by click, and use this function over here on by click. Okay, so we are done with the scaffold. Now in this I'll simply check if my game is empty. On that case I'm gonna use here box having modifier fill max size, content alignment is on the center, and in this text we simply say nothing found. Else, if it is not the case, I'm using here lazy column that has modifier fill max size, and in this I'm using items. So make sure to choose item that has parameter list of type T. So we have now games, we have one by one our item. So basically I want to use the same list item that we were using in our game screen. So for that we just need to create a list item in our common module UI layer and share that list item to both module. So for that, go to your game UI source. In this game screen, when you scroll down, we have this list item. Okay, so what I can do, I can just copy this list item from here, go to our common UI, and in this common UI first let me create common main. So just create common main KOTLIN, and in this let me create package chain Gaur Himanshu common UI, and in this I'm gonna create one more package saying list item, and in this list item I'm gonna create a file, and the file name is game item. This is a normal file, and in this I'm gonna create a composeApp naming game item, and simply paste the content that we have copied from our game list item. Okay, so now it's time to attach few parameters, and also I need to add dependency for coil image loading library. So in our build.getl.kts scroll down in our common main, I'm using implementation libs coil, and next we'll attach KTOR for coil. Sync your project, go back to your game item, and once the sync is completed, async image is available in this. Okay, so now in this game item I'm using modifier and initialize this thing with modifier. Next we have on click. Okay, so just use it. We need to pass the id to, so just use here integer. Okay, so import this async image and it is representing a game. So after this modifier, let's use here item, type is game, and this game is present in our domain layer. So let's connect our UI with domain. So in our common main, use implementation projects dot domain. Domain of what? Basically common domain, not domain directly. Sync your project, go back to your game item. Okay, so import this game, and now it is available. Just replace it with item here too. Okay, so this is our game item. Now in this I want to add a delete icon. So when we'll use this game item in our favorites, I want a functionality using which user can delete this item from our local database. So for that, as you can see, we are using here a box, and at the bottom I'm using here icon button. Remove this pair of parentheses, use here on click, and in this I'm using icon, and this icon is coming from our icons. Make sure to import this icon. In this we have default dot delete, content description is null. So in this icon button I want to attach modifier, background, and background color is white, and shape is circle. And our icon, which is present within our icon button, requires modifier of padding 4 dp from all the sides. And when user click on it, I want to delete that particular item from our local database. So in this game item I need to attach on delete click, and this takes integer as an input and output is unit. Scroll down and just use here on delete click. In this on click, use on delete click and simply pass item id. Okay, next we have to attach alignment to this icon button. Where do we want to align this? So basically we want to align this thing at the top right corner. So use here alignment dot top end. But before that, let me add padding. So I want padding 12 dp from all the sides. This icon button is only available in our favorite module. So in order to skip this button in our game screen, what we can do, we can simply pass here a boolean is delete show. We have a boolean and initial value is false. Scroll down. So if is delete shown is true, then only will show this icon button. Okay, so we are done with our game item. Now it's time to use it. So go to your favorite screen back over here, and in this item you can use your game. Basically we need to connect this module to our common UI. This is a very weird part of modelization. So implementation projects common UI, sync your project, go back to your favorite screen, and after the sync you will see game list is available. After the sync you will see game item is available, not game list. Okay, so in this item I'm gonna use game item. So specify all of the argument by name, remove this, use here on delete click. Okay, so in place of modifier I'm not going to pass this thing is shown, it delete icon button is shown. I want to show this thing. Just simply pass your item, and when user click on it we need to navigate to the detail screen. So for that just add few more function in here. So on details we need to pass the id, and on delete again we need to pass id, type is unit. Okay, so let's use it. In on click I'm using on details, and on delete I'm using on delete. Scroll up in your favorite screen, you can simply use your view model. Initialize this thing with using Koin view model. Mention the type, so type is favorite view model. Just below to it will receive the games. View model games collect this thing in a form of a state which is attached to our composable lifecycle. Just below to it you can use favorite screen content. Remove this pair of parentheses, specify all the argument by name, pass your modifier fill max size. In place of games you can pass game value. On by click, I want to transfer this on by click to my parent composable, so copy this stuff, paste in here and use that function here. Next we have to create one more function naming on details. Basically we will do the navigation in our composeApp module. Due to that reason we have to pass this click onto our parent composable, or you can say parent module. So on details, and lastly we have on details, on delete, not details. So we can use this thing with the help of ViewModel. Just pass your id, so it will simply delete it. Okay, so we are done with our favorite screen too. Just use this modifier in our scaffold. So now it's a good time to use this thing in our composeApp module. So scroll up in your composeApp, open the common main, KOTLIN. In our navigation, open up your favorite nav graph, use base navigation graph, implement build. We have nav graph builder dot navigation, so let's build a destination first because we want it. So we'll use here sealed class naming test that has a route. Type of this thing is string, and we have data object route which will represent the route of our navigation. Type is test slash favorite route. Next we have data object which represent our favorite screen, so favorite destination slash favorite. Okay, so in this navigation we have to mention its route. So this route is coming from test dot route dot route. Next we have to mention the start destination which is destination favorite route, and in this I'm gonna use composable, and in this composable we need to mention its composable route. So again destination favorite route, we have here favorite screen, and in this favorite screen we need to pass first our modifier. So modifier fill max size, just specify all the remaining argument by name. So when user click to the back button, we'll simply pop this thing from our stack. So nav host controller dot pop back stack, and when user click on details, we'll simply navigate to the detail screen. So for that we'll use nav host controller dot navigate. We'll use destination that is present in our game nav graph. So game nav graph destination dot details. In this we have a function naming get routes. Simply pass your id. So that's it for our favorite navigation graph. It's time to attach this navigation graph in our nav host. So for that go to your app.kt, and over here you can simply attach your favorite nav graph, and we can also navigate to the favorite screen from our game screen. So go to your game nav graph. As you can see on favorite click, we'll use here nav host controller navigate, remove this pair of parentheses, mention the route. So this route is coming from our favorite nav graph dot destination dot favorite dot route. Alright, so we are done with the navigation things too. One more thing, because in our core database, if you notice Android main core database module, we are actually using here context. So we need to attach this context in our Koin dependency injection framework so that it is injectable. For that, in our composeApp Android main, open up your base application. We are using here init Koin, and in this init Koin we are actually receiving the Koin application. So I'm using here it modules and attach a new module. Import this module. We have here a single, and in this single we'll create an instance of our context which is coming from our this dot base application, and we have our application context. So just register this thing. Alright, so we are done with our favorite screen. Now it's time to execute it to see whether it is working or not. So let's execute this thing in Android first. Okay, so we have an issue, and the issue is related to Android SQLDelight driver. So let me fix it. Alright, so I have fixed all the problem that was coming during the build. So let me show you the problems. Open up your core database, Android main, SQL driver factory. So here the problem is I'm actually checking whether the context is a type of context or not. So instead of that, you should typecast it and then use it. Apart from this, in your favorite data, domain and UI, make sure to add libs Koin core dependency for Koin dependency injection framework. Lastly, in your UI module of your favorite, create a new package for dependency injection, and in this dependency injection I have a file, and the file name is favorite UI module. We have a function get favorite UI module. A return type of this function is module, and we will return a module. In this we'll create our view model reference, and the view model name is favorite view model. We need to pass two things. So first let me specify all the argument by name. Use here get. Similarly for delete, use here get. Now it's time to attach this module in our init Koin function, which is present in our compose app. So scroll up in your compose app, common main di, use application di setup, and just add all of the favorite thing. So get favorite data module, get favorite domain module, get favorite UI module. Okay, and after that you can execute your application. Okay, so it is launching. Nice. So when I click on this, application is crashing. So let me see why it is happening. Okay, so could not create instance for favorite view model. Alright, so this problem is coming because of the context. We need to attach in our Android target the context. So in our base application, as you can see, we are doing this thing right now. Okay, so let's just open init Koin, and in this init Koin we need to use our Koin application, invoke and pass our this instance. Make sure to use here question mark. Alright, so by doing this, it will eventually trigger this block, and if it triggers this block, it simply attach context in our Koin dependency injection framework. So now our Koin DI will know how to inject context. When you re-execute your application will not crash. Okay, so as soon as I click on this heart, this time as you can see it is not crashing. This was happening because of the context. Context is not provided by our Koin dependency injection, but now as we have attached this context in our dependency injection graph, it is available. Okay, so for the time being in our favorite we do not have anything, so let's add few things, and we can add few things only from our detail screen. So in this detail screen we have this heart icon, which is actually used to insert it, and this delete icon, which is actually used to delete it. So let's add implementation for these two. So for that, let me just minimize everything, and in our game we have game details. So open UI source, and here we have game details. So in this game detail screen we have on delete and on save. Right, so let's begin our journey from data layer. In this data layer we actually write implementation for our repository, and repository is present in our domain. So in this domain we have a repository. Open up your game repository and just as suspend function say pass id. Next we have image, and lastly we have our game name. This is for the insertion. Next we have delete, so id int. Alright, so go back to your data layer repository implementation and write implementation of this. So in order to write implementation of save and delete, we want to inject my application database. So it is not available, so we need to connect this module with our core database. Go to your common main dependency, use here implementation projects core database and sync your project. Okay, so now we have access to our application database. In our save, I'm using this application database, app database queries, and we have here upsert. And in this upsert, we need to pass our ID, we need to pass our image and the name. Okay, so ID we need to pass in a form of long. If you want to delete it, you can simply use your application database app queries delete pass your ID in a form of long. Okay, just scroll down and this domain I'm gonna write use cases. So first use case is actually for saving. So save game use case, and in this I want to inject my game repository. In this we have operator function invoke, we need to pass the ID, we need to pass image, and lastly we need to pass name. And we'll use here our game repository dot save pass ID, then image, then name. This is a suspendable function, so make sure to use here suspend. Remove this function. Okay, similarly we have one more use case for delete. So delete use case, it's a class, and in this class I'm gonna inject my game repository. We have here operator function invoke pass your ID, game repository delete, simply pass your ID, and make sure this is a suspendable function. In your DI just register these two things, so duplicate it. We have save game use case, and next we have delete game use case. Let me see the name. So yes, delete use case. Alright, so now come to your UI layer, and this UI layer we have game detail screen. Go to your game detail view model and just write two more function. Function save pass your ID, pass your image, and pass your name. And in this I'm gonna use my use cases. So first use case is save game use case, and next we have delete use case. Scroll down, and in this save I'm gonna use save game use case, invoke it, pass it ID, image, and name. Because it's a suspendable function, make sure to use here ViewModel scope dot launch. Okay, so this will save the information. Next we have delete pass your ID, use here ViewModel scope dot launch, and simply use here delete use case, invoke it, and pass your ID. So this will do the save and deletion for you. Go to your game detail screen, and in this screen as you can see we have on delete and on save. So when user click on this on delete, what we can do, we'll use our view model and simply invoke the delete, pass the ID. Next we'll use view model save, and in this we need to pass ID, then we have to pass image, and lastly name. So it will do the insertion. Alright, so let's re-execute it. Alright, so in our game details view model we need to add two more use case. So first use case is our save game use case. Next we have delete use case, and let me verify this use case is already been provided or not. So in our game domain module, yes, it is provided. So just re-execute our application. Okay, so in the game repository now we have problem, and the problem is we need to pass app database 2. Okay, re-execute it. Let me check whether our data module is connected with our core database or not. Yes, it is connected, so definitely it will work. Now when I click on this GTA 5, I want to save it, come back, check the favorite, and as you can see right now we are having this GTA 5. Cool. And if you want to delete it, as you can see it is deleted. Okay, one more thing, when I added this GTA 5 in my local DB and I come back to our favorites, when I click on this, as you can see we are seeing the details. So this is the behavior we want. Okay, so everything is working. I want to change this favorite top app bar color from blue to white, and also this content color from white to black. So for that, go to your favorite UI, favorite screen, and over here scroll down in the top app bar, just use container color. So content color, I want to use here color. Make sure this color is coming from Android X Compose UI graphics black, and I want my background color to be white. Okay, so that's it for our favorite screen changes. And one more thing, when you see the status bar and our screen, so our screen goes below to this status bar, so we need to fix it. So for that, go to your compose app entry point, so common main KOTLIN application, and over here as you can see we are passing modifier. So in this modifier we need to do one more thing. So I want to calculate the bottom padding of our status bar. So this is coming from our window insets. In this we have a status bar. You can simply use as padding values, grab its bottom padding and simply use that bottom padding over here. So modifier padding from top, I want to use bottom padding, and now when you execute it, click on this. Okay, so use this favorite one. As you can see, this time our status bar is not coming on top of our screen. Alright, so everything is working right now. Now it's a very good time to execute the same thing in our iOS and desktop. So before executing on iOS, go to your build.gradle.kts, and over here we need to add one more thing, because we want to use SQLDelight database in iOS platform. We need to explicitly mention it over here, so that during the building process of iOS application, he knows that we want to use SQLDelight 3 in our project. So for that we'll use here linter options, and in this just use as SQLDelight 3, and in front of your SQLDelight 3 just use here L. Alright, so now let me sync it. Okay, so now this time I'm going to execute this thing on iOS side. So just use here iOS app and execute it. This is static is true, so you can comment it out, and now when you execute it, your application will work for iOS. So this is our application. When you click any of the item, you will see the details of that thing. Okay, if you want to save it, you can click on this heart icon, go back, click on this heart icon, and there we go. This is our favorites, and when you want to delete it, you can simply click on it and it will delete it. Go back, and if you want to search it, let's search God of War, my favorite, Ragnarok, and there we go. This is our God of War Ragnarok, and if you want to save it, just click on it, go back, again go back. Okay, so we do not have any navigation icon for this screen, so let's add it. So for that we need to go in our search screen. Make sure to choose composable search screen, and over here in this scaffold we have top app bar, and in this top app bar I'm gonna attach navigation icon. So make sure you are in the top app bar, and actually I'm using here text field. So just use a row having modifier fill max width, and in this you can add this text field, and in front of it you can use icon button, and you can transfer your on click when user click on it. In this I'm using icon. Image vector, use here icons, default, arrow back, content description is null. Alright, so after this we need to transfer this click event to the parent composable, but before that let me just add a spacer in between them. Modifier not weight, I want to use here width of 8 dp, and also I want to take padding from all the side 4 dp. Okay, so when user click on this, I want to navigate back, so on back click, just use this on back click over here, copy this signature, go back to your search screen, and over here you can paste it, and same thing you can do over here. On back click is equivalent to on back click, click on the search screen, go to your search nav, graph, and at the end you can use on by click nav host controller, simply use pop back stack. So this will do the work for you. Now when you execute it, alright, so click on this search. Now we do have this back icon, so when you click on it, we'll go to the back. Okay, so that's it for iOS side. Now let's see this application on the desktop. So for that, go to your composeApp desktop main, and in this we have main.kt file. Simply click on this green button and run your desktop app. There we go. This is our desktop side. So just click on this search and try to search here God of War. We have this God of War information. Okay, so it may be case sometimes some of the parameter from the backend comes null, so we cannot do anything for that. But yes, if you want to handle it, you can do it by yourself. It's not a big thing that I need to talk about that in this video. Okay, search, let's use here God of War. Scroll down and click on this Ragnarok. There we go. This is our God of War Ragnarok. If you want to save it, just click on it, go back, favorites. Okay, nothing found. So I think there are few issues in our desktop site with SQLDelight, so let's fix it. But rest of the things are looking good to me. Okay, so we are done with Android app, we are done with iOS app. Now it's time to fix this SQLDelight problem with desktop application. So let's do that. Got the issue, and issue is present in our core database desktop main core database module. So very weird issue. So if I using this thing in this way, so it will not work. But if I use here driver and initialize this thing with SQL driver, and after that when I pass it in here and re-execute it, you will see it will work. Okay, so click on this, go back to your favorite. As you can see, it is working, and when I click delete, it deletes that information. Go back, scroll down, just use this switcher, save it, go back, favorite, it is available. Now again go back in the details of this, delete it, go back to your favorite, and nothing found. So yeah, that's it for this desktop application. So yeah, we are pretty much done with this particular application. We saw how to use Compose Multiplatform to build an application that is not only executable on Android, but also it is executable on iOS and desktop. And we learned a lot of technologies in this particular video. We learned Koin DI, we'll learn how to create multi-module architecture in Compose Multiplatform with clean architecture and MVVM. Apart from this, we'll also use KTOR Client to communicate with our API endpoints. We saw how to use SQLDelight to store information locally. So yeah, that's it for this particular course. I hope you like it, and yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you.